Chapter 148. Late at night, in the city lord's mansion. Chu Shinran stood in front of his desk, picked up a brush, and wrote "Chi" on the desk. At this moment, his face was also very ugly. The reason was that he had no money. That's right, the city lord was now worried about money. He sighed deeply and said to himself, "Alas, I didn't expect that Bao Pengyi would deliberately build a fake secret room. No, I must find a way to find his private treasury. Otherwise, I won't be able to collect the promised salary for the city guards next month." Leng Shiqi, who had been lurking under his study, heard this and understood Chu Shinran's approach. It turns out that he took out all the money in the city lord's mansion to issue an assassination mission for Bao Pengyi in the blood-clothed pavilion and bribe the city guards. He was able to persuade the Chinko clan to take over the streets of the Three Swords Association. As for Chu Shinran, he wanted to use Bao Pengyi's private treasury to make up for the city lord's mansion's deficit. What a good plan. Fortunately, I arrived there one step ahead of time. Leng Shiqi came here at this moment for only one purpose, which was to assassinate Chu Shinran. Chu Shinran schemed against him and even put the blame on him for killing the 4 spiritual guards, causing him to provoke the heavenly cloud tower for no reason. He must take revenge. Of course, Leng Shiqi was not impulsive. After reading Chu Shinran's information during the day, he spent the whole day investigating the city lord's mansion. He found that Chu Shinran's vigilance was no less than Bao Pengyi's. Not only were there city guards patrolling around his room, but there were also many hidden sentries. If he acted rashly, he would definitely be surrounded. However, he was not unprepared. To be safe, he used all the system coins he got today for the lottery. The results were mixed. Out of the 6 intermediate lottery prizes, 4 of them were useless materials at this stage. As for the remaining 2, one was a treasure-seeking plate, which could search for nearby treasures. Unfortunately, it could only be used once. The other one was in Leng Shiqi's hands at this moment. Chu Shinran, who was still deep in thought, suddenly noticed the paper on the desk fluttering twice, but there was no wind. Chu Xianran immediately became alert. His eyes swept around, but he didn't find any trace of anyone. However, when he turned his gaze back, he was shocked to see a short figure sitting on the chair next to him. Chu Xianran felt a chill run down his spine. He silently cursed the guards and sentries outside for being blind. But when he took a closer look and realized that this person was a little familiar, a smile appeared on his face. So it's old Mr. Liu. Mr. really comes and goes like a shadow. I remember that Mr. said that you had something important to do. Why are you looking for me again? Leng Shiqi chuckled and said, "Isn't Castellan Chu asking the obvious? I don't understand." At this time, Leng Shiqi didn't want to waste his breath on Chu Xianran. He opened his palm and there was a light blue rectangular transparent crystal. Then, he injected his spiritual power into it and the crystal disappeared. Then, 6 light blue curtains sealed the room from top to bottom. It was as if they were trapped inside the crystal. This was the intermediate level prize, a one-time consumable, the Forbidden Barrier. Not only could this barrier trap people, but it could also isolate all sounds, vibrations, and even spiritual energy fluctuations from the outside. The reason Leng Shiqi didn't choose to suddenly attack was because he wanted to set up a barrier first to avoid alerting the city guards outside. When Chu Xianran saw the barrier, his eyes immediately revealed a look of horror. He immediately shouted, "Guards!" However, there was no movement outside at all. Chu Xianran's expression couldn't help but become gloomy. He didn't expect Leng Shiqi to have such a method. Without the city guards, he could only face Leng Shiqi alone. Leng Shiqi didn't want to give him time to think. The moment he set up the barrier, he pulled out 2 scimitars and attacked. Humph! Chu Xianran let out a cold snort. His robe fluttered and a powerful aura suddenly erupted. It directly overturned the table before him. His cultivation was actually at the 9th level of the spirit transformation realm. The table flew out and smashed towards Leng Shiqi, who was rushing over. 9th level of the spirit transformation realm. The information clearly said that Chu Xian Ran was at the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm, but he was still hiding his strength. Leng Shiqi was surprised, but he still slashed out with his scimitars. With a bang sound, the table was smashed into wood chips in the blink of an eye. Leng Shiqi's figure didn't stop at all. A purple light bloomed on the twin sabers. Chu Xian Ran's eyes widened. He knew that Leng Shiqi's scimitar technique was amazing, so he had to make the first move. He reached out his hands and golden light appeared on his palms. Then he suddenly slapped out. 2 abnormally powerful golden palms held out. Leng Shiqi slashed out with his scimitars. His 2 scimitars collided with the golden palms and he felt as if his scimitars had hit 2 pieces of metal. He couldn't help but take a few steps back. Seeing this, Leng Shiqi's heart couldn't help but tremble. It has to be said that his Gale Slash was at the peak of the spirit transformation realm and his scimitars were level 4 spirit artifacts. Even in this situation, he still couldn't beat Chu Xian Ran. More importantly, Chu Xian Ran was able to create palms? Leng Shiqi thought, spirit qi leaving the body is the sign of the spirit pulse realm of the sky realm. This Chu Xian Ran is a spirit pulse realm expert? No, his aura is clearly at the spirit transformation realm, but I understand, he is at the peak of the spirit transformation realm. Although there was only one realm between the spirit transformation realm and the spirit pulse realm, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. There were 2 conditions to break through to the spirit pulse realm. One was to compress the qi si in the body into a spirit si. In addition, one had to open up one of the 72 spirit veins in the body. Chu Xian Ran's spirit force was already at the point where his qi si and spirit si merged. Generally speaking, as long as someone like this cultivated steadily, there was a high chance that they could break through to the spirit pulse realm. From then on, they would be reborn, live longer, shed their mortal body, and step into the sky realm of the sky realm. Chu Xian Ran forced Leng Shiqi back with one move and laughed heartily. Huh, ignorant. What do you think this Chu is relying on? It's not those small tricks, but my strength. You dare to kill me with just you? Immediately after, Chu Xian Ran once again sent out 2 palms. 2 golden palms even more powerful than before flew toward Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi didn't dare to meet them head-on this time and chose to dodge. A black mist rose from under his feet and he dodged the golden palms like a feather. The palms slammed into the bookshelves behind Leng Shiqi. The bookshelves and books instantly turned into dust. Dodge? Didn't you want to kill me? This Chu is standing right here. Come and kill me. Chu Xian Ran's palms flashed with a golden light as he shouted. Leng Shiqi seemed to be angered by Chu Xian Ran's words. He raised his 2 blades and charged straight at Chu Xian Ran. Chu Xian Ran saw this and laughed in his heart. Just as he was about to attack, Leng Shiqi's figure suddenly turned into 12 illusions and the blades in his hands turned into swords. Chapter 149. When Leng Shiqi rushed over, he used the system space to change his blade into a sword. His entire body entered a strange state in an instant. His body moved and turned into 12 phantoms. Each of the phantoms had a different movement. Some charged forward, some attacked from the side, some jumped high, some slid on the ground, some stabbed out with invisible sword chi, and some stabbed out with light blue sword chi. What was even more strange was that although these illusions looked slow, they all stabbed towards Chu Xian Ran in the blink of an eye. Chaotic Blossom's dazzling eyes. This was a move that Leng Shiqi had used with his cultivation at the 5th level of the spirit transformation realm. It was a combination of the ethereal steps, the impacting meridian sword energy, and the cold frost sword energy, dazzling flowers. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Chu Xian Ran was at a loss of what to do in the face of 12 phantoms. He couldn't tell which one was Leng Shiqi's real body, or rather, all of them were real bodies. The smile on his face disappeared and turned into shock. He couldn't believe that such an exquisite spirit technique was mastered by a mere spirit transformation realm cultivator. However, he didn't have the time to think about it. He could only clench his teeth and send out 4 golden palms. Wherever the palms passed, the illusions and sword chi were scattered. However, there were still 4 illusions that came to his side. At this critical moment, Chu Xian ran, lowered his body and dodged the sword. His body suddenly spun and a faint golden light surrounded him in an attempt to block the remaining 3 illusions. Unfortunately, Ling Shiqi's 3 phantoms were extremely agile, and with the help of Byakugan, they quickly found Chu Xian Ran's weakness. 3 streaks of sword chi pierced Chu Xian Ran's ribs, waist, and legs respectively. The sword chi tore open 3 bloody wounds. 2 of the channel opening sword chi and 1 of the frost sword chi entered his body and blocked his meridians and froze his flesh. Chu Xian Ran was extremely shocked. He immediately used his spirit energy to disperse the sword chi. However, the 3 sword chi were like maggots that were difficult to get rid of in a short period of time. The key was that he didn't have that much time to get rid of the sword chi because Ling Shiqi turned around and sent out another sword strike, aiming straight for Chu Xian Ran's throat. At this time, Chu Xian Ran could only suppress the 3 sword chi to prevent them from spreading. Then he stomped his feet on the ground and used the force to quickly retreat. Ling Shiqi's sword pierced through the air. He flicked his wrist and 3 frost sword chi flew out. Soon after, he pointed his spear, aiming at Chu Xian Ran's throat. With a low roar, his entire body surged with an unparalleled domineering aura. Then, he straightened his spear and charged over like a sharp sword. Halfway through, the tip of the spear flashed and a huge cross-shaped light suddenly shot out. At this time, Chu Xinran had just smashed the 3 frosty sword chis and saw Ling Shiqi's fierce move. It was too late for him to dodge. At this moment, a trace of hesitation flashed in his eyes. But he immediately stuck his tongue out and swallowed a small pill hidden in his teeth. After swallowing the pill, Chu Xian Ran's aura suddenly skyrocketed. The robe on his upper body flew off, and a crystal-clear meridian could be vaguely seen on his right arm. That was the spiritual vein. At this moment, Chu Xinran had actually used the power of the pill to forcefully open half of his spirit meridian. However, he was still not in the spirit meridian realm. At most, he was half a step into the spirit meridian realm. Originally, as long as Chu Xinran was given 1 or 2 more years, he could naturally break through, but now that he was facing a life and death crisis, he had no choice but to forcibly increase his strength. However, this was equivalent to destroying his own future. For someone like him, who used external items to forcefully open a spirit vein, even after breaking through to the spirit vein stage, it would be difficult for him to progress. He would probably die of old age at this stage. Thinking of this, Chu Xian Ran's face was filled with hatred and madness. Originally, he had come to Upper Yang City to give himself a chance to show off. According to his original plan, as long as he pacified the city guards and dealt with the 3 Blades gang, he could go into seclusion to cultivate. As long as he broke through to the Spirit Pulse realm, Upper Yang City would be in his hands. After that, he would be able to conspire for another major event. However, his plans had been completely disrupted today, and he had even lost his cultivation future. He was filled with hatred. He wanted to kill Ling Shiqi. Chu Xinran pushed out his right palm, and a golden palm shadow that was 3 times larger than before shot out, meeting Ling Shiqi's formation-breaking cross spear. The cross light at the tip of the spear collided with the golden palm shadow, and an explosion occurred, causing the entire barrier to tremble slightly. The white light and the golden palm shadow reflected off each other, and in the end, both gradually dissipated. Neither could do anything to the other, but Ling Shiqi's 3-section spear had a few more cracks. At the same time, his expression was not good. He had used 2 killing moves, Chaotic Blossom gradually mesmerizing eyes and formation-breaking cross spear, but they were still unable to do anything to Chu Xinran. Is this the strength of an orthodox spirit cultivator, a half-step spirit vein stage spirit cultivator? However, Ling Shiqi immediately sensed that half of the spirit vein on Chu Xinran's right arm had dimmed a lot. It was obvious that the palm strike had consumed a lot of his energy. Just as Ling Shiqi was about to attack again, Chu Xinran made a move first. A golden light flashed behind him, and he actually passed through the golden ripples and instantly appeared beside Ling Shiqi, sending out another fierce palm strike. At this moment, Ling Shiqi's hair stood on end. He did not expect Chu Xinran's speed to be so fast. Ling Shiqi immediately moved his spirit energy, and the patterns on his back and abdomen suddenly lit up. Then, a gold and silver light flashed, and his body suddenly expanded. A layer of thin silver armor covered his body. He had activated 2 beast origin battle patterns at this moment. His aura exploded. However, Chu Xinran's golden palm shadow had already arrived with boundless strength. Facing this abnormally ferocious palm strike, the force of the palm pierced his face, causing him to feel a faint pain. At this moment, he was instead extremely calm. Suddenly, a flash of understanding appeared in his mind, and he unexpectedly followed up with a palm strike. When the palm struck out, it instantly turned into 6 palm shadows, and within the palm shadows, there was a bit of fire. Then, the 6 palm shadows suddenly merged into one. Ling Shiqi's palm also ignited a faint flame and blasted against the golden palm shadow. Boom, boom, boom. The 2 palms collided, and suddenly a violent force was set off. With the 2 of them as the center, the tiles and furniture in the entire room were all blasted out and smashed into the barrier. There was no place in the entire room that was intact. Ling Shiqi's body was blasted out and slammed into the barrier. The thin armor on his right arm was completely broken, and traces of blood seeped out. His arm was a little twisted, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Obviously, he was seriously injured. As for Chu Xinran, he was not in a good state either. The spirit vein on his arm had disappeared, and his entire arm was charred black as if it had been burned. And if one could see inside his arm, they would be even more surprised to find that the meridians, bones, and flesh had already been corroded to a terrible state. This was the 6-yang poison fire palm that Ling Shiqi had fused with the 6-yang palm and the poison fire palm at the critical moment. Chapter 150. The 6-yang poisonous fire palm had completely crippled Chu Xinran's right arm. It was his strongest right arm after unlocking his spirit vein. Chu Xinran had already begun to lose confidence. After using all his trump cards, he was the one who was injured even more. At this point, he began to seriously doubt the identity of his opponent. Ling Shiqi's cultivation level was not very high, but his spirit force was pure and his foundation was deep. Not only was his blade technique amazing, but his sword technique, spear technique, and palm technique were all stronger than the last. How could such a person be just a small assassin in black? However, what happened next shocked him even more. Ling Shiqi's left hand flashed with starlight and a circular formation appeared before him. A huge sword tip with a shocking cold aura appeared from it. The cold aura overflowed, causing Chu Xinran's limbs to stiffen. Then the sword tip suddenly shot out and pierced his heart. It was Spirit Attack, Ice Giant Sword. Chu Xinran spat out several mouthfuls of scarlet blood. He stared at Ling Shiqi with eyes filled with disbelief. He muttered, "Impossible," however, before he could finish his sentence, he fell to the ground and died. Seeing that Chu Xinran was finally dead, Ling Shiqi immediately gasped for breath. Although he had activated 2 beast origin battle patterns in this battle, he had still suffered heavy injuries. Moreover, the consumption of spirit force was extremely large. In particular, the newly comprehended 6-yang poisonous fire palm had consumed more than 30% of his spirit force. At the same time, he had used this battle to fuse another move, which was a pleasant surprise. He had discovered that the higher the intensity of the battle, the faster his comprehension of spirit techniques would be. Then Ling Shiqi looked around. The forbidden boundary was still there, so he did not have to worry about being noticed. Then he swallowed a few pills and began to search Chu Xinran's body. Unexpectedly, he found a mustard seed bag. Chu Xinran was only at the spirit transformation realm. Even though he was the lord of a city, Shangyang City was only a small remote city. Logically speaking, he should not have something as precious as a mustard seed bag. But since there was, it showed that Chu Xinran's identity was not that simple. Leng Shiqi didn't care about this. His face lit up as he hurriedly opened it. First of all, the space in this mustard seed bag was half as small as his, and there were very few things inside. There were only a few dozen spirit stones and some ordinary medicinal pills. The rest were Chu Xinran's personal belongings. It could be said that the harvest was meager. This was a little too shabby. However, Leng Shiqi thought about how Chu Xianran emptied the treasury of the city lord's mansion. Chu Xianran might have even lost his own fortune. What's this? Leng Shiqi suddenly saw two strange things in the mustard seed bag. One of them was a dark blue round plate that was half the size of a palm. One side of the plate was engraved with the 9 heavens profound thunder, while the other side was engraved with the word dark. He didn't understand what it meant, but he could roughly guess that it was a symbol of status. The other was a tattered map with the words, Tomb of XX Marquis, vaguely written on it. Leng Shiqi glanced at it a few times before throwing it into the mustard seed bag. Finally, he burned Chu Xinran's body with fire, erased all traces, removed the forbidden boundary, and left the city lord's mansion from underground. The next morning, Leng Shiqi appeared on the street. His face was slightly pale as he ate some breakfast at a roadside stall. Then, he bought a horse and walked towards the city gate. However, when he arrived at the city gate, he stopped. It wasn't because someone stopped him, but because he found a strange symbol in the corner of the city gate. It was the secret sign of the Blood Garment Pavilion, which meant that there was an important matter. Is this the sign Mao Kai left for me? Or is there someone else in Shangyang City? Forget it, I'll go find him first. It won't take much time anyway. Leng Shiqi thought to himself. Then, he turned back and walked towards the coffin shop. When Mao Kai saw Leng Shiqi again, he immediately shouted in surprise, "Emissary, you're not dead." Leng Shiqi's face sank when he heard this. Seeing Leng Shiqi's unfriendly expression, Mao Kai smiled awkwardly and said, "Emissary, please don't assassinate Chu Xinran. I just received an urgent secret report last night. Chu Xinran's cultivation, it's the peak of the spirit transformation realm." Leng Shiqi finished Mao Kai's sentence. Mao Kai was startled for a moment, then his eyes and mouth slowly widened. His lips trembled as he said, "Emissary, how did you know? Could it be that you've already?" At this point, Mao Kai made a throat-slitting gesture. Leng Shiqi didn't say anything and only nodded. He didn't deliberately hide it from Mao Kai. After all, he had taken the information on Chu Xinran from Mao Kai, and the news of Chu Xinran's death would probably spread soon. Hiss. Mao Kai sucked in a breath of cold air when he heard this. That's the peak of the spirit transformation realm. And his identity is extraordinary. Did he really die? In truth, there was something Mao Kai didn't say out loud. Leng Shiqi's cultivation was only at the 5th layer of the spirit transformation realm. How could he kill Chu Xinran, who was at the peak of the spirit transformation realm, and assassinate him in the city lord's mansion? The city guards hadn't even discovered it yet. How did he do it? Of course, Mao Kai didn't ask too much. He knew that trouble comes from the mouth. Leng Shiqi said indifferently, "The news should spread soon. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first." Although he had killed Chu Xinran, he was still injured. He wanted to return to the pavilion to recuperate. However, he didn't expect Mao Kai to stop him and say, "Emissary, please wait. There's something you might not know." Leng Shiqi stopped and asked in confusion, "What is it?" Mao Kai leaned over and whispered, that Chu Xinran's identity is not simple. He is the Dark Thunder Guard of the Thunderfire dynasty. Dark Thunder Guard? When Leng Shiqi heard this, he immediately thought of the token with the thunder pattern engraved on it. Mao Kai explained, "Emissary, you might not know this, but the Dark Thunder Guard belongs to the Thunderfire dynasty's royal family. They are responsible for dealing with shameful matters. Moreover, they have great authority. They can monitor the royal family and investigate the officials and commoners. Those who can enter the Dark Thunder Guard are all elites among elites. Chu Shinran is one of them. Leng Shiqi nodded. So that's how it is. That Chu Shinran is indeed extraordinary. Mao Kai continued, Emissary, you killed a member of the Dark Thunder Guard. The higher-ups will definitely send people to investigate. If there are any clues left behind, I'm afraid they will quickly find you. At this moment, Leng Shiqi was a bit glad that he had destroyed all the traces, so he said, I erased the traces of the fight. They shouldn't be able to find anything. Mao Kai heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. If he was really found out, he might also be found out by following the vine to the melon. With that, Leng Shiqi left. Chapter 151. At this moment, in the city lord's mansion, a large group of people were walking back and forth in front of Chu Xian Rant's room with anxious expressions. Why hasn't the city lord come out yet? After the battle between the Chinko Hall and the Three Sabers Association, there are still a lot of messes to clean up. We have to wait for the city lord to make a decision. Did something happen? Why don't we go in and take a look? That's not very good. We're all doing this for Shangyang City. I don't think the city lord will blame us. All right. Everyone pushed open the door, but what they saw was a mess. Everything that could be seen was shattered into pieces and squashed against the wall. Only half of a charred corpse was left in the room. They turned pale with fright and looked at each other. They knew that something bad had happened. And the culprit of this matter, Leng Shiqi, had already urged his horse out of the city and rushed back to the Een Wind Ridge. The city lord's death could not be hidden. After all, so many people and guards had seen it. The city lord's mansion was originally a plate of loose sand, so the news quickly spread. When the news of Chu Xian Rant's death came out, the entire city was in an uproar. Whether it was the ordinary residents or the spirit cultivators, they were all a little uneasy. The destruction of the Three Sabers Association 2 days ago had made many people realize that Shangyang City was about to change. But only a day had passed, and the new city lord, Chu Xian Ran, was also dead. Such a huge change made many people feel uneasy, causing the already desolate Shangyang City to become even more lifeless. However, as the saying goes, some people are happy while others are sad. And vice versa. There was one person in the city who was very happy, and that was the hall master of the Chinko Hall, Go Huarong. He and Chu Xian Ran had joined hands to exterminate the Three Sabers Association, and Chu Xian Ran died the next day. This was equivalent to giving the entire Shangyang City to him. Of course, there were also many people who guessed that it was Go Huarong who killed Chu Xian Ran, but he did not care about that. He directly sent out all his gang members, and in just a day, he occupied more than half of the streets in the city. Vaguely, he was about to become the overlord of Shangyang City. Even until late at night, the city lord's mansion was still brightly lit. There was an endless stream of people coming and going inside, but everyone's faces were filled with worry. There was an atmosphere of panic that enveloped the entire city lord's mansion. In the room where Leng Shiqi and Chu Shinran were fighting, an old man with a goatee was pacing around with bright eyes. He seemed to be observing every detail in the room, fearing that he would miss out on even the slightest clue. This man was the famous coroner master in Donglin County, Zhuang Qingping. He had solved countless strange cases for Donglin County. It was even rumored that he could tell the cause of death, the time of death, how many people he had killed, what kind of weapon he had used, and even what kind of spiritual technique he had used just by looking at a corpse. Until now, he had never made a wrong judgment. He could be said to be an eccentric. Coincidentally, Zhuang Qingping happened to be passing by Upper Sun City. When he heard that the city lord Chu Xian Ran had died mysteriously, he took the initiative to show himself. The people in the city lord's mansion didn't know how Chu Xian Ran had died, so they couldn't report to their superiors. When they learned that Zhuang Qingping was here, they welcomed him as if he had caught a life-saving straw. After a long while, the old man squatted in front of the charred corpse that had been burned to the point where it no longer had a human shape. His hands suddenly emitted a faint layer of spiritual light, as if he had put on a pair of thin gloves. He began to carefully examine Chu Xian Ran's corpse, which only had half of a charred corpse left. The more he examined, the more he frowned. He waved his hand, and then a very stout man next to him bowed and said, "Lord Zhuang, what can I do for you?" This man's name was Zhong Qi, and he was Chu Xian Ran's deputy. He helped him deal with the affairs of the city lord's mansion. Now that Chu Xian Ran was dead, many troubles fell on his head. Zhuang Qingping asked, "Let me ask you, did no one hear anything last night?" Zhong Qi answered seriously, "Lord Zhuang, according to the report of the guards in the mansion, there was no sound in the room last night." Zhuang Qingping was surprised and said, "That's strange. From the degree of destruction in the room, the spiritual energy fluctuations should be comparable to a spirit cultivator at the peak of the spirit transformation realm. How could no one notice such a big commotion? And from the traces, someone used an extremely powerful spear technique. Other than that, City Lord Chu's body also had sword wounds and traces of scarlet poison palm force entering his body. However, the fatal injury that caused City Lord Chu's death came from a powerful ice spirit technique. His body was set on fire after his death. The more Zhong Qi listened, the more shocked he became. His eyelids twitched as he said, "Lord Zhuang means that there were 4 people who avoided all the guards and hidden sentries last night. At the same time, they sneaked into the city lord's mansion to assassinate City Lord Chu. There was even a spirit cultivator among them." "That's right. But that's impossible." Zhong Qi still found it hard to believe. "Nothing is impossible. Originally, I was also curious as to why they could sneak in so easily without making any noise. It seems like this was the work of that spirit cultivator. Look, everything in this room is broken beyond recognition. Only the surrounding walls are undamaged. It must be that spirit caster who set up a restriction formation or something like that. The abilities of spirit cultivators have always been strange and unpredictable. There's no need to make a fuss over nothing." Zhong Qi said, "So it's like that. Then who does Lord Zhuang think the culprit is?" Zhuang Qingping coldly snorted, "Humph, to be able to take out such a large sum of money and send out 4 spirit transformation realm late-stage spirit cultivators, including a spirit cultivator to assassinate City Lord Chu. Such a person is definitely not someone you and I can provoke. Furthermore, if I'm not wrong, City Lord Chu's identity is probably not simple. Forget it, this old man is just passing by and does not want to meddle in other people's business. You just need to follow my instructions and report it. Don't worry about anything else." Zhong Qi nodded his head and said, "This official understands. Many thanks for Lord Zhuang's help." Ling Shiqi did not care about the changes in Shangyang City. He had already completed his mission and killed the enemy who schemed against him. Now, he did not have any lingering thoughts or interest in Shangyang City. He just wanted to quickly return to the pavilion and recuperate. It was also because of his injuries that his speed was slower. He did not return to the pavilion for an entire day. In the end, he could only sleep in the wilderness. However, he did not care. He directly sank into the ground out of habit. After casually eating and drinking, he began to cultivate and recuperate. However, not long after, he vaguely heard hurried footsteps coming from the ground. Ling Shiqi immediately opened his supercilious eyes and immediately saw several huge balls of spirit qi. Among them, the weakest was more than 10 times his spirit qi. One of them had an enormous spirit qi that could be said to be terrifying. Ling Shiqi was shocked. Although he did not know the specific cultivation level of these people, there was no doubt that they were experts of the 4 realms of heaven. Why would so many experts of the 4 realms of heaven suddenly come to such a remote place? Chapter 152. The next morning, Ling Shiqi had already arrived near the Shady Wind Ridge. He selectively forgot about the spirit cultivators of the 4 realms of heaven and human that he had accidentally met last night. He didn't dare to have a curiosity that he shouldn't have. He drove the horse away and entered the Shady Wind Ridge alone. His speed was not slow as he stepped on the black fog. After a while, Ling Shiqi arrived at the entrance of the pavilion. However, he saw dozens of people gathered there from a distance. He could feel the strong smell of gunpowder even from so far away. Ling Shiqi frowned. Is someone here to cause trouble for the Blood Robe Pavilion? This is the Blood Robe Pavilion, one of the 7 top sects in the world. Even if it's just a branch, it's not something that ordinary sects can afford to offend. Then, he hid his figure and quietly went around from the side. He did not expect to find a familiar figure behind a big rock. That person was Fan Jingqiu, who had brought him to the Donglin County branch. At this time, Fan Jingqiu was looking in the direction of the entrance of the branch. Suddenly, someone patted him on the shoulder. Fan Jingqiu was immediately startled. He pulled out a dagger from somewhere and was about to stab. However, when he saw that the person was Ling Shiqi, he immediately stopped and let out a sigh of relief. He said in a low voice, "Junior brother Ling, it's you. You almost accidentally injured yourself without making a sound. By the way, you just came back from a mission, right?" "That's right." Ling Shiqi nodded. He then asked, "Senior brother Fan, what happened in the pavilion? Who are those people?" Fan Jingqiu said with a serious expression, "They're from the Tang family." "The Tang family?" Ling Shiqi recalled the distribution of forces in Donglin County. Speaking of the forces in Donglin County, the Mountain Sea sect, one of the 9 major sects, was naturally the dominant one. Even the Thunder Flame dynasty was suppressed. However, the area of Donglin County was not small. The Mountain Sea sect was built in the vicinity of the sea. Of course, other forces would be born in the remaining large area. Sects like the Blood Robe Pavilion and the Mountain Sea sect that could be ranked on the world sect ranking were considered the top forces. The sects below them were divided into 3 levels. From bottom to top, there were third-rate forces, second-rate forces, and first-rate forces. Experts who were able to cultivate to the spirit aperture realm had the qualifications to establish their own sect, and the forces established by people of this realm were generally third-rate forces. The Heavenly Cloud Tower, where the 4 spiritual guards belonged, was a third-rate sect. In Donglin County, there were dozens of third-rate forces, and there were only about 10 second-rate forces. As for first-rate forces, there were only 2, and the Tang family was one of them. The Tang clan was a great clan that had risen in recent decades. Their clan leader, Tang Haoquang, was a great expert at the unity of heaven and man realm. But why did they come here? Ling Shiqi asked in confusion, "What is the Tang family doing in our branch?" "Brother Lang, there's something you don't know, but this matter is very satisfying." Fan Jingqiu raised his eyebrows and said, "The Tang clan's reputation in Donglin County can be said to be second only to the Mountain Sea sect. The biggest reason is that the Tang clan has a genius called Tang Heyu. This person broke through to the spiritual pulse realm at the age of 24, which shocked the whole Donglin County and even overshadowed the disciples of the Mountain Sea sect. There are even rumors that the Tang clan may become one of the 10 aristocratic families in the world sect ranking list because of Tang Heyu." Hearing this, Ling Shiqi knew that Fan Jingqiu had not gotten to the point, but he was not in a hurry. He even cooperated and asked, "Tang Heyu is really worthy of the title of genius." "Then what happened?" Fan Jingqiu curled the corner of his mouth and said coldly, "Then, just a few days ago, Tang Heyu was killed." "He was killed? Such a great genius was killed?" Ling Shiqi's mind raced. Combined with the appearance of the Tang clan here, he instantly thought of a possibility. Tang Heyu was probably killed by the Blood Robe Pavilion. Fan Jingqiu continued in a proud tone, "Junior brother Ling should have guessed it. Yes, Tang Heyu was killed by a disciple of our sect. The person who carried out this task is called Bing Shang. He can be said to be a genius disciple of our Donglin County branch. He is definitely not more than 30 years old and has just broken through to the spiritual pulse realm not long ago. In terms of cultivation speed, he may not be as fast as Tang Heyu, but in terms of combat effectiveness, the result is obvious." Hearing this, Ling Shiqi also understood the ins and outs of the matter. Bing Shang, a killer of the Donglin County branch, killed the genius of the Tang clan, Tang Heyu, so the Tang clan came to settle the score. However, Ling Shiqi had another question. He asked, "Our blood robe pavilion is only responsible for carrying out tasks. Even if the Tang clan wants to take revenge and make trouble, they should not come to us. Besides, the Tang clan does not have the strength to challenge the blood robe pavilion." Fan Jingqiu snorted coldly and said, "As everyone knows, we only do things for money and do not have any grudges. But after all, this is Donglin County, which is too far from the general pavilion, and the Tang clan is a local tyrant, so they shamelessly asked for the information of the employer. The one who came was Tang Haoqing, the elder of the Tang clan and also Tang Heyu's father. He was in the gang's spirit realm and brought many masters of the celestial being realm to suppress the situation. But as the employer of the killer force, the information of our sect must not be leaked. This is the root of the problem, so they began to negotiate there." After figuring all this out, Ling Shiqi somewhat despised the Tang clan's behavior. They did not have the ability to find out the mastermind behind, so they came to make trouble for the Blood Robe Pavilion. But suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. Tang Haoqing and his gang could not be those people he met last night, could they? Ling Shiqi secretly estimated that the possibility was great. Masters of the celestial being realm were not cabbages on the roadside. They were probably these people. At this time, Fan Jingqiu suddenly said, "Hey, there seems to be a quarrel over there." Ling Shiqi looked up and saw that the two leaders of the Blood Robe Pavilion and the Tang clan began to quarrel loudly. It seemed that the negotiation had failed. The leader of the Blood Robe Pavilion was Gue Ju, the leader of the Blood Robe Pavilion. He was saying in a low voice, "Tang Haoqing, your Tang clan is so powerful. Today, you have already broken the rules of our pavilion by coming here. You want the information of the employer? Dream on." Tang Haoqing, the elder of the Tang clan, was already as black as the bottom of a pot. He immediately said angrily, "I have already said that the Tang clan will pay whatever price you want. Don't you make money by assassination? Now I will pay you more. Tell me who wants to kill Tang Heyu." No comment. Gue Ju said firmly. Tang Haoqing's face was as dark as water. He said through gritted teeth, "Don't forget that this is Donglin County." Gue Ju's attitude was even tougher. He snorted and said, "Don't forget that standing in front of you is the Blood Robe Pavilion, one of the 7 unique in the world." Chapter 153. Ghost Ju and Tang Haoqing did not budge an inch and faintly emitted their own spiritual pressure. However, their expressions were very different. Ghost Ju's face was somewhat calm because he knew that Tang Haoqing would never dare to attack the Blood Cloak Pavilion unless he was crazy. Tang Haoqing's face was more resentful and humiliated. In fact, he had secretly come this time behind the family head's back because Tang Heyu was his son. He knew that the family head would definitely not let him come to the Blood Cloak Pavilion branch, so he could only secretly bring people here. Originally, he wanted to use the power of the Tang family and the high reward to persuade Ghost Ju, but he did not expect Ghost Ju to be so unreasonable. In the face of this situation, he had no other choice. He knew very well that he could not do anything. Once he did, it would be equivalent to completely provoking the Blood Cloak Pavilion. His own son had been killed, but he did not even know the real murderer. An indescribable and nameless fire burned in his body, causing him extreme pain. On the other side, Ling Shiqi and Fan Jingqiu were still whispering to each other. Ling Shiqi said, "Senior brother Fan, do you think they will fight?" "Humph, even if the Tang family had 10 times the courage, they would not dare to do anything. Do you know?" Fan Jingqiu said this and stepped on something, making a crisp sound. The sound was very soft, but Tang Haoqing was sharp enough to catch it. He was about to explode, so he immediately turned his head and shouted, "Where did this rat come from? Die!" Tang Haoqing angrily punched out, and a visible red fist with blazing flames suddenly lit up the night sky, illuminating the surroundings as if it was daytime. The flames swept over with a terrifying temperature, and everything in their path was turned into ashes. The target of the flames was where Ling Shiqi and Fan Jingqiu were. The flames appeared too suddenly and came very quickly. They could feel the blazing aura from afar, as if they had been thrown into a sea of fire. Leng Shiqi was horrified. He didn't know why Tang Haoqing would suddenly attack him, but he knew that if he didn't run now, there would be nothing left of him. He hurriedly circulated his spiritual energy, and his body suddenly grew taller. His whole body bulged with sturdy muscles, directly bursting his black clothes and mask. At the same time, a silver-white brilliance enveloped him, covering him with a thin layer of silver armor. Double Beast Origin Battle Pattern. After activating the Spiritual Ruin Beast King and the Silver Scale Fire Armored Crocodile's Beast Essence battle patterns, the Leng Shiqi's strength and defense greatly increased. However, the ferocious flames also began to rush over. Leng Shiqi quickly used Ghost Parade and dodged to the side using Spirit Steps. This series of changes happened in an instant. Leng Shiqi quickly flashed out, but Fan Jingqiu was a beat slower. The raging flames suddenly swallowed the big rock and Fan Jingqiu. It was as if a giant flame beast had swallowed him completely. He didn't even have a chance to scream before there was nothing left of him. Although Leng Shiqi wasn't hit head-on, just a little bit of the aftershock was enough to scorch the thin silver armor on his back. Bursts of intense pain instantly spread throughout his body. What was even more terrifying was that the flames exploded after swallowing Fan Jingqiu. Leng Shiqi was in the range of the explosion. He was horrified. He raised his right hand and 5 earth walls appeared in front of him. Immediately, his left hand flashed and emitted a dense cold air that covered the earth walls. The 5 earth walls instantly turned into 5 ice walls. Leng Shiqi continued to turn and run. Every few steps he ran, he would erect an earth wall behind him. At this time, the scattered flames smashed down. When they touched the ice walls, they immediately caused a sizzling sound. The 5 ice walls didn't even last a second before they turned into a pool of mud. The fire continued to spread, and the earthen walls that Leng Shiqi had set up were all shattered like paper. From beginning to end, it had only bought him less than 2 breaths of time. However, it was these 2 seconds that allowed Leng Shiqi to hide in the dense forest next to him. Unfortunately, a ball of fire still hit his back. Pooh! Leng Shiqi immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. The fire burned the thin armor on his body. The thin armor was actually transformed from his skin. This was equivalent to burning his skin and flesh. In addition, a majestic blazing aura poured into his body, constantly destroying his meridians and internal organs. Even though Leng Shiqi's body was strong and he had activated 2 Beast Yuan battle tattoos, he still couldn't bear it. He could only quickly burrow into the ground. He didn't dare to stay for a moment. He went more than 100 feet underground before stopping. He hurriedly swallowed a few elixirs to restore his qi, blood, and spiritual power, and then began to suppress the extremely violent blazing aura in his body. At the door of the pavilion, Ghost Ju was secretly surprised when he saw Tang Haoqing suddenly attack. He had long noticed that there were 2 people hiding nearby. He had always thought that they were the Tang family's secret sentries or passers-by. If they were from the Blood Cloak Pavilion, they would have come directly. There was no need to hide. But in fact, they were really from the Blood Cloak Pavilion. Coincidentally, Fan Jingqiu and Leng Shiqi had just returned from a mission. Leng Shiqi didn't know much about Donglin County, so he asked a few more questions. Who would have thought that he would bring disaster upon himself? Under Tang Haoqing's fire, Fan Jingqiu's face was turned to ashes before he could even see it. But when Ghost Ju saw Leng Shiqi's face, his eyes suddenly widened. Leng Shiqi? Why was Leng Shiqi there? In this pavilion, anyone could die, except for Leng Shiqi. When Ghost Ju saw Leng Shiqi was hit by the fire, his qi and blood surged, and his horrible spiritual power at the peak of Gang's spirit realm broke out. Dozens of people in front and behind, except for Tang Haoqing, were all shaken out. At this moment, there were gusts of chilly wind around Ghost Ju, and his blood-red robe was rustling in the wind. He stared at Tang Haoqing, revealing an amazing murderous intent. Seeing this, Tang Haoqing's face turned a little pale. Although he was in the same realm as Ghost Ju now, Ghost Ju used to be one of the 9 famous ghost blood cloak killers, a great master in the realm of oneness of heaven and men. Now his cultivation realm had fallen, but his fighting experience and means were far beyond Tang Haoqing's. Ghost Ju raised his arms, and the chilly wind around him suddenly spread out. Suddenly, a strong chilly wind blew in a radius of hundreds of feet, and the sound of ghosts crying could be faintly heard. Seeing this, Tang Haoqing's face finally changed. He shouted, "Ghost Ju, you're serious? Go to hell." Ghost Execution let out a low roar. Ghost energy surged out from his body, and in the blink of an eye, the ghost energy turned into fierce ghosts that circled in the air. In less than 2 breaths of time, over 100 fierce ghosts had appeared. Tang Haoqing stomped on the ground with one foot and clenched his fists in front of him. Then he smashed his fists on the ground with a muffled shout. Suddenly, the fist spirit burst out, and a huge column of fire shot up from the ground, shining in all directions. He spread his arms, and the column of fire covered his whole body, so that the ferocious ghosts could not get close to him. Ghost Ju smiled coldly, and his body was changing strangely. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a ferocious ghost that was 10 feet high. His 2 ghost claws moved, and instantly tore the column of fire apart. Then the ghosts rushed to Tang Haoqing, howling. Chapter 154. Leng Shiqi, who was hiding deep underground, was about to suppress the fire in his body when the ground suddenly shook. Then he heard the sound of hundreds of ghosts crying and flames exploding above him. What was even more terrifying was that 2 powerful spirit force fluctuations suddenly appeared, causing him to spit out another mouthful of blood. "There's a fight above? We can't stay here." Leng Shiqi was shocked again and quickly ran away. Otherwise, he would only get more injured. It wasn't until he was several miles away that he could no longer feel the 2 spirit force fluctuations. Only then did he feel relieved. At the same time, he secretly cursed his bad luck. He and Fan Jingchu didn't do anything, yet they were inexplicably attacked. Fan Jingchu died on the spot, and he was seriously injured. Leng Shiqi checked his injuries. He was already injured in the battle with Chu Xinran, and now his body's condition was even worse. His entire back was charred black, and there were even a few hideous bloody wounds. It looked a bit too horrible to look at. But the more serious injuries were his internal injuries. Tang Haoqing's flame was a little strange. It was not a simple flame, but more like it was derived from some kind of fist technique. This was because Leng Shiqi could clearly feel that the residual flame in his body still contained bursts of fist force. The flames and fist energy had destroyed most of the meridians in his back. If it wasn't for the fact that he cultivated a body refining technique, his body would be much stronger than ordinary people. He would have died on the spot. Then Leng Shiqi used all his spirit force to suppress the flames and fist energy. After an entire day, he finally suppressed them. This was only suppression, he hadn't completely forced them out of his body. Fortunately, it was only a matter of time. At this point, Leng Shiqi let out a breath and wiped the dense sweat on his face. Then his eyes flashed with hatred and a desire for strength. He hated Tang Haoqing, but he also yearned for that kind of strength. Tang Haoqing only threw a punch from afar. Just a little bit of the aftershock and residual flames touched Leng Shiqi, and he was seriously injured. How powerful was that? However, Leng Shiqi knew his limits. What he needed to do now was not to hate or desire, but to heal his wounds. He returned to the ground and looked up to identify the terrain. "I remember there's a small town nearby. Let's go there and rest for a few days." Sinzu Town was an ordinary town near Shangyang City. After Leng Shiqi arrived at Sinzu Town, he found an inn and shut himself in, slowly recovering from his injuries. What he didn't know was that there were more and more outsiders coming to Sinzu Town these past few days. On the 10th day, he had almost used up all of his healing pills, and his injuries had finally improved by about 70 to 80%. However, he was in a very bad mood. For the past 10 days, he had only cared about recuperating from his injuries, so his cultivation had not improved at all. The path of cultivation was like rowing a boat against the current. If one did not advance, one would fall behind. These 10 days could be considered as a waste of time. He walked out of the room with a sullen face and prepared to pay the bill. Coincidentally, 2 people came to check out behind him, and they were whispering to each other. Leng Shiqi sensed that these 2 people were only in the pure spirit realm, and they looked to be in their 30s. They were obviously spirit cultivators with poor aptitudes. At first, he did not pay much attention to them, but by chance, he seemed to have heard the word City Lord's Mansion. His heart skipped a beat, and he channeled his spirit energy to his ears, quietly listening to their conversation. Brother Li, is the news reliable? Brother Wang, don't worry. I went out last night to inquire, and this news was released by Shangyang City Lord's Mansion. It can't be fake. But I remember that Marquis Buiyuan died a few hundred years ago under the siege of the imperial court. Where did the tomb come from? Those high and mighty people are all very powerful. How can we speculate about them? Since the City Lord's Mansion has released the news of finding Marquis Buiyuan's tomb, why don't we try our luck? Who knows, maybe we'll find it. When the time comes, we'll definitely be rewarded. Fine, since I have nothing to do, I'll accompany Brother Li on this trip. Ha ha ha, good brother. At this time, Leng Shiqi also finished paying the bill. It was the 2 people's turn, and they stopped talking. Leng Shiqi thoughtfully walked out of the inn. As soon as he left the inn, he immediately noticed that there were many more people in the town than when he first came, and many of them seemed to be in a hurry. Could it be that they're all here for Marquis Buiyuan's tomb? However, he was very unfamiliar with the words Marquis Buiyuan, but he had seen the word tomb on a broken map not long ago. After that, Leng Shiqi bought a few books in town that recorded the history of Shangyang City. The Marquis Buiyuan was a person who lived more than 300 years ago. At that time, Shangyang City was not as desolate as it was now. Although it was not very big, it was very famous, and the merchants that came and went were very dense. The most important reason was that Shangyang City had a Marquis Buiyuan. It was said that Marquis Buiyuan was born in an ordinary family in Shangyang City. Although he became a spirit cultivator, his cultivation talent was very ordinary. He was able to earn a position in the city guards, enough to support his family. Later, when the Thunderblaze dynasty and the newly proclaimed Northern Wei dynasty went to war, Marquis Buiyuan resolutely joined the army. But he did not expect that from then on, he would start a glorious life. Marquis Buiyuan was not afraid of death on the battlefield, and he repeatedly performed miraculous deeds. His position was quickly promoted, and he was valued by the higher-ups. He was passed down a high-grade cultivation technique, and his cultivation began to advance by leaps and bounds. Finally, when the war ended, he used his illustrious achievements to rise from a common soldier to the title of Marquis Buiyuan. It could be said that his future was limitless. However, what no one expected was that he actually gave up his military position and returned to Shangyang City with only the title of Marquis. It could be said that he gave up his great future. Many people found it hard to understand. Later on, something even more incomprehensible happened. About 20 years later, someone secretly reported that Marquis Buiyuan was secretly preparing a large amount of money and weapons. It seemed that he was up to no good. The dynasty immediately sent people to investigate, and it turned out that it was true. The unparalleled Marquis Buiyuan was actually up to no good, and the evidence was conclusive. Suddenly, the world was in an uproar. Not long after, the dynasty sent people to encircle Marquis Buiyuan's residence, and Marquis Buiyuan died in battle. From then on, Shangyang City was implicated and slowly declined. After reading this, Leng Shiqi felt that something was wrong, but he could not say what it was. After all, it was someone from more than 300 years ago. Who could know the truth? But at this time, he was a little hesitant. He now had 2 choices. One was to return to the Shadow Wind Ridge to submit the mission and then cultivate for a while. In the past few days, he found that the bottleneck of the 6th layer of the spirit transformation realm had loosened. It would not be long before he could break through. The other choice was to go and see the so-called tomb of Marquis Buiyuan. Maybe he could fish in troubled waters and fish for some benefits. After pondering for a while, Ling Shiqi made a decision. Chapter 155. Ling Shiqi decided to look for an opportunity. His mission only needed to be completed within a month. There was still half a month left, so he was not in a hurry. Moreover, after handing in the mission, he would still have to cultivate and carry out missions step by step. If this continued, when would he be able to break through to Celestial Realm 4? Ling Shiqi did not forget the mission Wu Xiang gave him, which was to break through to the spiritual pulse realm within a year. It was definitely impossible to do it just by cultivating hard. The news of Boiwanhu's tomb had attracted so many people, so it did not seem fake. This could be considered an opportunity. Moreover, it was near him. It would be a pity if he did not give it a try. Most importantly, he had been provoked by Tang Haoqing. At that time, Tang Haoqing had only casually thrown a light punch, but that little bit of aftershock had seriously injured Ling Shiqi. What kind of powerful strength was that? This also made Ling Shiqi deeply feel how weak he was. Even if he thought that his talent was extraordinary, his comprehension was high, and he had the system as a cheat, his potential could be said to be extremely high. However, potential was only potential, not strength. Therefore, Ling Shiqi was also very anxious to improve his strength, and Boiwanhu's tomb was an opportunity. His only concern was that it was a bit too much of a coincidence for such a thing to happen so soon after the change in Shangyang City. However, since the news came from Shangyang City, there would definitely be more accurate and detailed information in the city. Moreover, he had sources of information in the city. Half a day later, when Mao Kai saw Ling Shiqi appear, he was also a little surprised. He immediately asked, "Emissary, did you accept another mission near Shangyang City?" Ling Shiqi shook his head and said, "It's a long story. I came to you this time to ask for some information about Boiwanhu's tomb." "TSK, emissary, you want to get involved too?" Mao Kai showed a stunned expression at this time. Ling Shiqi frowned and said, "Can't I?" Mao Kai subconsciously said, "You really can't." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw that Ling Shiqi looked a little unhappy. He immediately explained, "Ambassador, you may not know the rules of our sect. All the disciples of the blood-clothed pavilion are not allowed to participate in the fight for natural treasures." Why is that? Ling Shiqi was really surprised this time. What kind of strange rule was this? Mao Kai explained, "Well, this is about the nature of our sect. The blood-robed pavilion was an assassin force, and countless people had died at their hands. He had even killed the disciples and elders on the world sect ranking. He had even killed the sect leader. In this world, there are as many forces that want to destroy our sect as there are hairs on an ox. Over the past 1,000 years, there have been countless forces that have risen and fallen. Why is our sect still able to exist and even be ranked as one of the 7 invincible sects? This is not only because our sect is strong, but also because we know our own situation and position. The blood-robed pavilion was actually a sword in the hands of all the sects in the world, a sword hidden in the darkness. Those things that could not be done openly were left to this sword to do. Therefore, even if the blood-robed pavilion was hated by countless people, no one mentioned that they wanted to destroy our sect because everyone needed this sword. Therefore, since the establishment of our sect, there has been a rule that we are not allowed to participate in any grudges or vendettas, nor are we allowed to fight for natural treasures, secret opportunities, and so on." Ling Shiqi quietly listened to Mao Kai's words and understood the reason behind it. He also agreed with the blood-robed pavilion's approach. Since the blood-robed pavilion was a sword in the hands of all the sects in the world, it could only be an honest sword. Therefore, the disciples of the blood-robed pavilion had to maintain absolute neutrality and only act according to the mission. They could not be mixed with any personal grudges. It was no wonder that when he wanted to assassinate Chu Xinran last time, Mao Kai had tried his best to stop him. Once the blood-robed pavilion was tainted with karma, it would probably lead to a disaster in an instant. However, Ling Shiqi was not very interested in this. Even in the blood-robed pavilion, not many people recognized him. As long as he disguised himself well, who would know that he was from the blood-robed pavilion? Therefore, he said directly, I know. Give me the information. Mao Kai, he immediately said with a sad face, emissary, I've been talking for a long time, but you didn't listen to me at all. Don't worry, I'll hide my identity well. Besides, I'm the one who broke the rules. If the higher-ups blame me, I'll bear the responsibility alone. No, I broke the rules by giving you the information. I'll definitely be severely punished. Mao Kai shook his head. Leng Shiqi smiled gently and said, anyway, you've already broken the rules once last time. What are you afraid of? Shoo. Mao Kai hurriedly made a shushing gesture and said in a low voice, emissary, please keep your voice down. Last time, I didn't know Chu Shinran's true strength and identity. You have to know that he's a dark thunder guard. Even if I kneel in front of you, I won't give you the information. Is that so? Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows and said, in fact, your information was not of any substantial use. It even almost cost me my life because of the wrong information. Also, you took 10 spirit stones from me. I haven't had the time to settle this with you yet. Leng Shiqi's tone became colder as he spoke. Mao Kai immediately shivered. I didn't know the truth back then. Humph, as long as you give me the information about Wu Yu and Ho, I'll forget about what happened before. Mao Kai's face instantly drooped and his eyes were full of hesitation. Leng Shiqi saw his hesitation and knew there was a way. He continued, Mao Kai, do you know that there are only 0 or infinite chances of breaking the rules? Anyway, you've already broken the rules once. What's the harm in breaking it again? Besides, only the heavens and earth know about this. As long as you and I don't say anything, the sect will definitely not know about this. Mao Kai heard this and felt that it made sense. He coughed dryly and glanced over from time to time. Leng Shiqi saw this and smiled inwardly. He knew that this matter was settled. He took out a spirit stone and placed it on the table. Mao Kai immediately ran into the room to get the information. Emissary, I've brought all the information about Wu Yu and Ho, but I don't know if I should say something. Mao Kai took out a small stack of files and asked with a solemn expression. Leng Shiqi nodded and said, go ahead. Emissary, not long after Chu Shinran's death, there was news in Shangyang City that Wu Yu and Ho had secretly built a tomb nearby. This is too much of a coincidence. I also heard that a few days ago, the famous coroner Master Zhuang Qingping entered the city lord mansion. I'm afraid there's something fishy about this. Leng Shiqi heard this and said seriously, don't worry, I've already thought about this matter. I'll be careful. By the way, you must have information about Qingko Hall. Give it to me. Mao Kai. Chapter 156. Leng Shiqi carefully studied the information related to Boiwanhu's tomb. First of all, the historical record was similar to what he had read before. The only difference was the ending. In reality, Boiwanhu did not die in the hands of Dynasty. Instead, he escaped and disappeared. Later on, Dynasty's people raided the Marquis residence, but they did not find any wealth or weapons. According to the testimony of the people in the Marquis residence, Marquis Boyuan had once built a magnificent mausoleum for himself. There were treasures hidden in it, and he left a map for his descendants. Unfortunately, Boiwanhu's family had been killed and he had no descendants. No one knew where the map was. Leng Shiqi discovered a crucial point in the information. There was a map in the mansion that recorded the location of Boiwanhu's tomb. However, it was incomplete. The map was divided into 4 parts. The mansion had 1, the Chinko clan and the 3 Swords gang had 1 each. As for the last one, no one knew who had it. Thinking of the map, Leng Shiqi immediately took out a tattered map from his mustard seed bag. It was the one he had found on Chu Shinran. This should be the one in the mansion. No, that's not right. According to the information, there's still a map in the mansion. I'm afraid the map I have is Bao Pengyi's. At that moment, Ling Shiqi suddenly recalled that he only had time to take Bao Pengyi's head after killing him. He did not take anything from him. Presumably, Bao Pengyi had kept the map fragment with him. Later on, Bao Pengyi's body fell into Chu Xinran's hands. Naturally, he took everything. He did not expect the map to fall into Ling Shiqi's hands. It seems like the map in the mansion's hands was brought by Chu Xinran. Perhaps he came to Shangyang City for Boiwanhu's tomb. Since the Chinko clan has a map too, it might be a breakthrough, Ling Shiqi said to himself softly. When night fell, he went to the Chinko clan's headquarters. It had been more than 10 days since Ling Shiqi assassinated Bao Pengyi. These days, it could be said that Chinko Hall was at its most prosperous. This was especially true for the hall master of Chinko Hall, Go Huarong. At first, his Chinko Hall and the Three Sabers Association could be said to be evenly matched. But not long ago, the Three Swords gang had actually boarded the Heavenly Cloud Tower's ship, and had even obtained the 4 spiritual guards. These were 4 spirit transformation stage spirit cultivators from proper spirit cultivation sects. His subordinates, who were born in the wilderness, could not be compared to him. Therefore, Go Huarong felt a strong sense of urgency. Coincidentally, it was at that time that the new city lord of Upper Sun City, Chu Xian, secretly found him. Both sides' target was the strongest Three Blades Guild, so they immediately hit it off and secretly joined hands. After that, things went very smoothly. The Three Blades Society was destroyed, and Chu Xian died inexplicably. Go Huarong seized the opportunity to take over 70% of the streets in Shangyang City. Countless people fought to join Chinko Hall. The current Chinko Hall had already become the well-deserved overlord of Shangyang City. Therefore, in the past few days, Go Huarong had been holding a banquet with countless guests. Even at night, it was still very lively. Ling Shiqi disguised himself as a hunchbacked old man and walked over. When he reached the door, he was stopped by 2 gang members. "Who is it? Do you have an invitation?" Ling Shiqi used a voice-changing technique to imitate a hoarse voice and said, "I want to see your hall master. Give this letter to him, and he will see me." As he spoke, he took out a letter. The gatekeeper took it and said, "I will go and inform him." Not long after, the gatekeeper hurried back, followed by an elegant middle-aged man. The gatekeeper said in a low voice, "It's this old man." The middle-aged man cupped his fists and said, "Ha ha ha, I am the steward of Chinko Hall, Shui Wenli. Old mister, please come in. The hall master is waiting in the side hall." Ling Shiqi followed him into the main hall. Along the way, they exchanged a few pleasantries. He only revealed that his surname was Lu, and he didn't say anything else. Ling Shiqi followed Shui Wenli to the side hall. Sure enough, there was a man in green standing there. He looked to be in his 50s or 60s. This was the hall master of Chinko Hall, Go Huarong. As soon as Go Huarong saw Ling Shiqi, he smiled and said, "Brother Lu, please sit." Ling Shiqi sat down unceremoniously and said bluntly, "Hall Master Go must already know why I am here. So the last piece of the map is with Brother Lu. If you and I work together, it means that we have half of the map. Finding Boiwanhu's tomb is just around the corner. However, the map is too important. I still need to take a look at it to be at ease. I wonder if Brother Lu can borrow it to take a look." Ling Shiqi sneered in his heart. Previously, he had put a rubbing of the map in the envelope. Therefore, he believed that as long as Go Huarong saw the envelope, he would definitely meet him. Then, he took out the old map from his sleeve. However, he didn't give it to Go Huarong. Instead, he showed it to him and put it away. Go Huarong's eyes lit up as he looked at the map. Although he only saw it a few times, he could clearly tell that it was real. This was because the map's material, color, age, and ink marks were exactly the same as his own map. He had studied this map for many years. It could be said that the map was so detailed that he could detect the slightest difference. After confirming the map, the smile on Go Huarong's face grew wider. "Huh, Brother Lu didn't deceive me. Brother Lu, if you have any conditions, please state them. Leng Shiqi pondered for a moment and said, I can give the map to Hall Master Go. First, I want 200 spirit stones and a third-stage spiritual skill. After finding Boiwanhu's tomb, I want to enter it with the Chinko Hall. I want to choose 3 items first. Hearing this, Go Huarong's face sank and he fell into deep thought. Leng Shiqi was not in a hurry. He sat there leisurely and waited. He knew that Go Huarong would definitely agree. The reason was that Go Huarong had always thought that the city lord's mansion had 2 maps. If he wanted to be the first to find Boiwanhu's tomb, he would have to choose to cooperate with Leng Shiqi. Furthermore, the conditions he proposed were not excessive. 200 spirit stones was not a small amount for an ordinary spirit cultivator, but it was nothing for the Chinko Hall that had been in Shangyang City for more than 20 years. Although a third-stage spiritual skill was precious, he did not insist on what type it was. This gave Go Huarong a lot of leeway. As for the last condition, it was an empty promise. Go Huarong would definitely agree. Sure enough, after a short while, Go Huarong said, We'll do as Brother Lu says. Leng Shiqi smiled lightly and said, I believe that Hall Master Go's decision is wise and will not go back on his words. Go Huarong said proudly, Of course. Brother Lu, you can go out and ask around. I, Go Huarong, have established the Chinko Hall for nearly 20 years because of trust. Chapter 157. Over the next few days, a large number of outsiders poured into Shangyang City every day, filling the streets, inns, and taverns. The city, which had been in decline for a long time, became lively again. Most of these people came for Boiwanhu's tomb, while a small number came purely to watch the fun. Recently, news about Boiwanhu's tomb had spread all over the place, and it had become a hot topic among the residents. Today, a group of 10 people walked into the Spirit Cultivator commercial street. They were all wearing light blue robes embroidered with green clouds. Look, who are those people? I don't know, but I can tell they're disciples of a Spirit Cultivator sect. They're not people we can mess with. Go, stay away. Aren't they from Heavenly Cloud Tower? They're from Heavenly Cloud Tower. Look at the leader. He's one of the deacon elders of Heavenly Cloud Tower, Yujinyu. He's a spirit pulse expert of the 4 realms of Sky Man. The surrounding people were slightly shocked. After all, 99% of the people in this group would never be able to enter the spirit pulse realm in their lives. Their eyes were filled with envy and awe. In the main hall of Chinko Hall, Go Huarong sat on a chair while Shui Wenli paced slowly. From time to time, someone would quietly come in, hand over an envelope, and leave. Go Huarong asked, Have you found out about that person? Shui Wenli was stunned after reading the contents of the letter. His face darkened, and he paused for a moment before saying, Not yet, but my subordinates reported that people from Heavenly Cloud Tower just entered the city. Heavenly Cloud Tower? Go Huarong was shocked and couldn't sit still. Yes, many people saw them. The leader is the Deacon Elder of Heavenly Cloud Tower, Yujinyu, a Spirit Pulse Realm cultivator. Spirit Pulse Realm. These 3 words exploded in Go Huarong's mind. They didn't even have a Spirit Pulse Realm cultivator in Shangyang City. Now, one had suddenly appeared, and he was the Deacon Elder of a third-rate Spirit Cultivator sect. Needless to say, Yujinyu must be here for Boiwanhu's tomb. Go Huarong asked in a deep voice, Just him? There are 9 other elite disciples of Heavenly Cloud Tower. It's worth mentioning that Ji Gu, one of the 4 spiritual guards who was in charge of protecting Bao Pingi, is also among them. 9. Hearing this, Go Huarong's face turned even uglier. He had already sent out all his gang members to search for clues in the vicinity of Shangyang City according to the map. He had also made some progress, so it could be said that he had a slight advantage. However, so what if he had the upper hand? Not to mention the others, just the 10 people from Heavenly Cloud Tower alone would be enough to turn his Chinko Hall upside down. Although he had a few spirit transformation realm leaders under him, How could those people who came from the wilderness be compared to the sect disciples who had been raised since childhood? What's more, Yu Jinyu was here. Who could be his opponent? At this time, Shui Wenli said, Hall Master, should we contact Yu Jinyu? Sigh, it's too late. Since we were able to get the news, the city lord's mansion must have known long ago. Although Chu Xian Ran is dead, City Guard Commander Zhong Lin is still alive. He is now in charge of all affairs in Shangyang City and will definitely contact Yu Jinyu as soon as possible. Go Huarong sighed slightly. But it was Chu Xian Ran who hired assassins to kill Bao Pengyi and the 4 spiritual guards. It's impossible for Heavenly Cloud Tower to cooperate with them. If you say so, then so be it. Do you have any evidence? Isn't that Ji Gu one of the 4 spiritual guards? He is the evidence. You underestimate Chu Xian Ran too much. Ji Gu must have secretly relied on the city lord's mansion to survive until now. With him as the middleman, they will work together. What should we do? Shui Wenli was also a little anxious. Go Huarong had experienced great storms and waves, so he quickly calmed down and said, Don't worry, since the tomb of Buiyuan Ho can attract Heavenly Cloud Tower, it can naturally attract other spirit cultivator sections. Send more brothers to watch the various city gates at all times. Once you find a spirit cultivator sect entering the city, you must inform me as soon as possible. We also need to find strong reinforcements. Hall Master is wise. By the way, what should we do with that old man surnamed Lu? He's just an idiot. He actually handed over the map so easily. I originally planned to kill him directly. Let's keep him first. When we find the tomb of Buiyuan Ho, we'll bring him in. He's at least a spirit transformation realm cultivator. When we get the tomb, Go Huarong's eyes were filled with killing intent as he spoke. Shui Wenli immediately complimented, Hall Master is farsighted. This subordinate admires you. However, the two of them would never have dreamed that Leng Shiqi was actually right below where they were talking. Furthermore, he had listened to every single word of their conversation without missing a single word. Before Leng Shiqi came to Chinko Hall, he had stored a lot of dry food and water in his mustard seed bag. After reaching an agreement with Go Huarong, he pretended to leave, but in fact, he sneaked back underground. He had 2 purposes. First, he could know all the information at any time. Second, he wanted to see what kind of face Go Huarong had. Today, he saw that he was not a good person. The reason Leng Shiqi had directly given the map to Chinko Hall was because it was useless to him. Chinko Hall had a lot of people. With 2 maps, it wouldn't take long for them to find the tomb of Buiyuan Ho. He also hoped that the tomb would appear soon. It would be best if it appeared within half a month. That way, he could go back and take over the mission to assassinate Bao Pengyi. However, the appearance of Heavenly Cloud Pavilion also surprised him. Buiyuan Ho was indeed a very great person in the folklore, but in the end, he was just a marquis with no real power and lived in a small city. Such a person was really nothing to a spirit cultivation sect. For example, if the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion's master and head elder joined the Thunderfire dynasty, they could easily get the title of marquis. The appearance of Heavenly Cloud Pavilion worried Leng Shiqi the most. He was afraid that his identity would be exposed. When he assassinated Bao Pengyi, he used the identity of the old man surnamed Lu. His appearance was also the same. This definitely could not escape Ji Gu's eyes. Once he dared to show up with this identity, Ji Gu would definitely recognize him. At that time, he would not have the confidence to resist the encirclement of a Spirit Pulse Realm expert and 9 Spirit Transformation Realm cultivators. It seems that it is necessary to deal with this hidden danger, Ji Gu. Leng Shiqi coldly muttered to himself, then left Chinko Hall. When night fell, Leng Shiqi touched the vicinity of the city lord's mansion. Then, the veins at the corner of his eyes bulged and he opened his eyes. In his vision, the world suddenly turned black and white. He carefully looked at everyone in the city lord's mansion, as well as their spirit aura. Not long after, he locked onto a familiar aura. It was one of the 4 spirit guards, Ji-gu. Chapter 158. However, Ling Shiqi didn't act rashly because there were more than a dozen spirit transformation realm cultivators around Ji-gu, as well as one who was more than 10 times stronger than him. Ling Shiqi swallowed his saliva and thought, "That's Yu Jinyu, a true spirit pulse realm expert." Not long after, those people dispersed, and Yoshitsugu also entered a room alone. Ling Shiqi knew that his chance had come. Ji-gu had been living in an abyss of suffering during this period of time. At first, he failed to protect Bao Pengyi and failed the mission. At worst, he would just return to the sect to be punished. However, he didn't think that Chu Shinran would dare to kill them. When he fell into the hands of the city guards, he thought he was dead for sure, but in the end, he became a chess piece in Chu Shinran's hands. When he returned to the sect, he was still severely punished according to Chu Shinran's instructions, but this was nothing. Later, when he learned of Chu Shinran's death, he realized what despair was and what the pain of waiting for death was. If Chu Shinran died, who would give him the antidote? Recently, he would feel intense pain in his body every once in a while. Each time, it would get worse and worse. If it happened a few more times, he was afraid he would die from the pain. Just 2 days ago, Heavenly Cloud Pavilion learned about Marquis Boyuan's tomb and immediately sent people to Shangyang City. Because Ji-gu had stayed in Shangyang City before, he was familiar with the place, so he was brought along to make up for his mistake. Ji-gu naturally wanted to come to Shangyang City. Only here would he have a chance to find the antidote. Although the chances were slim, it was better than waiting for death. At this moment, he walked into the room arranged for him by the city lord mansion. He felt physically and mentally exhausted. The pressure of running for a long time and slowly approaching death almost made him collapse. Ji-gu whispered, "Sigh, I don't know if I can find the antidote." Perhaps it was because he had been wandering on the edge of death, but at this moment, Ji-gu suddenly felt a strong killing intent lock onto him. He immediately turned around and was about to shout, but he didn't expect a dagger to be pressed against his throat. Yoshitsugu was horrified. When did this person appear? However, he didn't even dare to breathe loudly. He could only look at the person behind him from the corner of his eyes. He felt that the person looked familiar, but he couldn't recall who it was. The person who made the move was naturally Ling Shiqi. Originally, Ling Shiqi wanted to kill Yoshitsugu with his full power, but after hearing Yoshitsugu's words, he changed his mind. Yoshia was looking for an antidote. What antidote was he looking for? Ling Shiqi recalled that Mao Kai had mentioned to him that Chu Shinran deliberately let one person go in order to frame him for killing Bao Pengyi and the 4 spiritual guards. With Chu Exine Rant's methods, how could he let Yoshiko go so easily? Ling Shiqi quickly guessed that Chu Shinran most likely used poison to control Yoshia. Chu Shinran's belongings were all with the Ling Shiqi. He rummaged through the mustard seed bag and found a bottle of poison called ant-devouring poison pill. After swallowing this poison, the whole body would be in severe pain every once in a while, as if countless ants were gnawing on it. And every time it happened, it would be more painful than the last. If the antidote wasn't taken within a month, the person would eventually die from the endless pain. Coincidentally, he also had the antidote. So Ling Shiqi changed his mind about assassinating Yoshia. He whispered, "Yoshia, right? We're old acquaintances." As soon as Ling Shiqi spoke, Yoshia immediately remembered who this person was. He was the assassin who killed Bao Pengyi. Although that person only said one sentence to Chu Shinran, Yoshia still remembered it clearly. However, he did not expect that one day, he would also become the target of assassination. Thinking of this, he smiled dejectedly and said, "If you want to kill me, then kill me. In any case, I don't have many days left to live. Just give me a quick death." Ling Shiqi took out a pill and said with a sigh, "Well, since you want to die, then this antidote will be wasted." What a pity. When Yoshia saw the pill, he seemed to have guessed what it was. His eyes suddenly lit up, and endless hope of survival rose in his heart. He hurriedly asked, "What antidote is this?" Seeing this, Ling Shiqi smiled and said, "Naturally, it's the antidote to the ant-devouring poison pill in your body." "Who?" Yoshia's breathing instantly became heavier. He trembled and said, "Really? Hey, I won't lie to you. If you don't believe me, you can take one now," Ling Shiqi said as he handed the pill to Yoshia's mouth. Yoshia hesitated for a moment, but immediately opened his mouth and swallowed it. Then he closed his eyes. After a few breaths, he suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were full of joy. He could clearly feel that the poison in his body was rapidly fading. The antidote was real. However, Yoshia knew very well that the other party would not give him the antidote for free, so he said, "What do you want? Just tell me." Ling Shiqi took back his dagger and sat down on a chair next to him. He said, "No wonder Chu Xinran chose you. You're really a smart man. The ant-devouring poison pill is not so easy to detoxify. You must take 3 antidotes in a row within a month to completely detoxify the poison. The remaining 2 antidotes are in my hands." Yoshia's eyes flashed when he heard this. He had understood what Ling Shiqi meant. The other party wanted to use the poison to control him, just like Chu Xinran did. At this point, Yoshia couldn't help but feel a little helpless, but in order to survive, he had to answer, "Yoshia understands. I'll do my best to fulfill your orders." Ling Shiqi knew that it was done. He said in a serious voice, "You only need to do 3 things. First, don't expose my identity. Second, tell me the information about your heavenly cloud tower. Third, do one thing for me after entering Guiyuan Hoji's mausoleum. As for what it is, we'll talk about it later. As long as you agree to these 3 conditions, I can give you another antidote now. I'm much more sincere than Chu Xinran." Yoshia began to twitch when he heard this. He could fulfill the first condition of Ling Shiqi, but the second condition was tantamount to leaking the intelligence of the sect. If he was caught, his cultivation would be abolished and he would be expelled from the sect, or he would be executed directly. And the third condition, if the other party asked him to attack his fellow sect members, what should he do? Ling Shiqi seemed to see what Yoshia was worried about, so he said, "Don't worry, the information I want is only the basic information about your heavenly cloud tower. I can get it by asking around. It's just that my legs are not good enough, so I don't want to make a few more trips. As for the last condition, I will never let you do anything that will make the heavens angry." Ling Shiqi's words finally dispelled Yoshia's worries. He nodded and said, "I promise you." Chapter 159. Ling Shiqi quietly left the city lord's mansion without anyone noticing. Not only did he successfully solve the hidden danger of his identity being exposed, but he also took control of a spy in the Heavenly Cloud Pavilion. It could be said that this trip was not in vain. I really didn't expect that Chu Xinran's method would end up as a chess piece in my hands. It's very interesting. After solving the hidden danger here, Ling Shiqi continued to return to the underground of the Chinko Hall and waited for news. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, another 4 days had passed. In these 4 days, there were not as many people entering Shangyang City as before, but it caused waves of excitement because spirit cultivator sects kept appearing one after another. The third-rate sects, Hao Yi sect and Luo Yu Manor, both came. Moreover, the leaders were all spirit pulse realm experts, which caused a wave of commotion. In addition, there were a few demonic cultivators of unknown origins that appeared in Shangyang City. Demonic cultivators were a special kind of spirit cultivator. The cultivation methods they cultivated and the spirit techniques they used were mostly cruel and bloody. Moreover, most demonic cultivators had bad tempers, so they were not liked by many. On this day, Go Huarong was anxiously waiting for something in his room. He rarely showed such an anxious expression, so it was obvious that he was waiting for something or someone important. Not long after, Shui Wenli ran in with a head full of sweat, but his face was full of joy. "Hall Master, I found it, I found it. The entrance to Marquis Guiyuan's mausoleum is in the flat roof." Ha 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 ha. Hearing this, Go Huarong laughed loudly and said, Good, good, good. This time, you've done a great job. In the future, when I'm old, I can rest assured that the Chinko Hall will be in your hands. Shui Wenli was immediately shocked and said, I don't dare to take credit. Besides, Hall Master will break through to the Spirit Pulse realm in the future and prolong your life. Hall Master, you're still middle-aged. Ha ha ha, okay, but don't make this matter public. Let the brothers of the Spirit Pulse realm and above leave the city in batches. Before anyone else finds out, we'll take action first. Go Huarong ordered. Yes, but when do we inform Luo Yu Manor and the old man surnamed Lu? Go Huarong thought for a moment and said, there's no rush. Let's arrange for our people to go out and make preparations. We'll inform them the day after tomorrow. At this moment, a voice came from outside. Hall Master, that Lu guy is here again. He's asking to see you. What? Go Huarong and Shui Wenli looked at each other in confusion. They had just discovered the location of the mausoleum, and that person had come knocking on their door. This was too much of a coincidence. However, they didn't suspect anything. After all, only the two of them knew about this in the city. Go Huarong replied, tell him to wait for me in the side hall. At this moment, Leng Shiqi was sitting in the side hall and slowly drinking tea. The best news for him in the past few days was that he had broken through to the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm. He was already at the peak of the 5th level of the spirit transformation realm when he was in the Dark Erosion Spring. Later, he focused on cultivating the 7 Fiend Blood Slaughter art, and his spirit force became even more refined. Originally, he could have broken through to the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm long ago. Unfortunately, he had been rushing to the Donglin County branch and carrying out missions for more than half a month. When he was preparing to return to the branch to cultivate in seclusion to break through, he inexplicably suffered an unexpected disaster, causing him to be seriously injured. In the past few days, his injuries had finally healed, and his cultivation had naturally broken through to the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm. It just so happened that he was about to enter Boiwanhu's tomb. It was naturally a good thing that his cultivation had broken through, and he was more confident. At this moment, he had nothing to do, so he opened the system and looked at his information. Name, Leng Shiqi, Lu Xingji, Cultivation, 6th level of the Spirit Transformation Realm Cultivation Method, Rank 3 Cultivation Method, Moonlight Cloud Manual Rank 3 Cultivation Method, Beast Origin Demonic Technique, Incomplete, Rank 4 Cultivation Method, 7 Fiend Blood Slaughter Art, Incomplete, Bloodline. Spirit Skill, Rank 2 Spirit Skill, Forest Front Finger, Complete, Rank 2 Spirit Skill, Poison Fire Palm, Complete, Rank 3 Spirit Skill, Channel Charging Sword Chi, Complete, Rank 3 Spirit Skill, Floating Spirit Steps, Complete, Rank 3 Spirit Skill, Devouring Light Flying Dagger, Complete, System Coins, 41. When Leng Shiqi saw the last Devouring Light Flying Dagger, Complete, he laughed in his heart. This spirit skill was actually one of the rewards for giving the map to Go Huarong. At that time, he asked for a rank 3 spirit skill, but he did not deliberately specify what type. Thus, Go Huarong thought himself clever and gave him a hidden weapon spirit skill that was even rarer than a movement spirit skill. This type of spirit skill was rare not because it was precious, but because it was very difficult to cultivate and was not very useful. Generally speaking, in the realm below the 4 levels of the Sky Realm, hidden weapons were indeed somewhat useful. Whether it was for sneak attacks or to buy time for oneself to escape, it was a good choice. Thus, many spirit cultivators from all walks of life would more or less carry some hidden weapons. However, as one's cultivation increased, the use of hidden weapons became less and less. For example, a Spirit Pulse Realm expert who had already opened the Spirit Sea could release Spirit Chi from their body and had a protective Spirit Chi. Ordinary hidden weapons would not be able to injure them at all, even if it was a hidden weapon spirit skill. Thus, almost no one was willing to cultivate this type of spirit skill. Go Huarong treated it as trash and threw it to Leng Shiqi. However, no matter how difficult it was to cultivate this spirit skill, it was not a problem for Leng Shiqi. Now, his Devouring Light Flying Dagger, Complete, was also at the realm of perfection. In addition, he had not been idle for the past 2 days. He took the time to go to the spirit cultivator business street and bought 3 flying daggers at a high price. Each of them was a rank 2 spirit artifact. This could be considered one of his trump cards. At this time, Ling Shiqi heard footsteps and stopped thinking. He picked up the teacup and continued to drink tea. "Brother Lu, does my tea taste good?" Go Huarong's voice sounded. Ling Shiqi put down the teacup and said politely, "Good tea, good tea." Go Huarong laughed heartily and said, as long as it tastes good." "That's right, why did Brother Lu come here today?" Ling Shiqi said casually, It's nothing. I just want to ask about the tomb." Go Huarong's eyes flashed and said, "Brother Lu can rest assured. With our 2 maps, I believe that you will find the tomb in a few days. To be honest, I still have some trivial matters to attend to. May I ask if Hall Master Go can give me a more precise time? It's not that I'm evading, but this kind of thing is hard to predict. It might take 10 days to half a month to find it, or it might be found tomorrow. Brother Lu, don't be anxious. Why don't you stay in the residence for a few days? If there is any news, you can inform Brother Lu at any time." Ling Shiqi thought about it and nodded his head in agreement. Go Huarong sneered in his heart and clapped his hands. "Come, arrange the best room for Brother Lu." Chapter 160. On the morning of the 3rd day, someone knocked on Ling Shiqi's door. Outside was a person dressed as a servant. When he saw Ling Shiqi come out, he bowed and said, "Senior Lu, the hall master invites you over. He said he has something to discuss." Ling Shiqi already knew what was going on and immediately followed him to the main hall of the Qingkou Hall. At this time, there were more than 20 people in the main hall. Almost all of them were spirit cultivators of the spirit transformation realm. They were divided into 3 groups and stood clearly separated. On one side were the original leaders of the Qingkou Hall. They stood behind Go Huarong. On the other side were a few spirit cultivators dressed strangely. Ling Shiqi guessed that they were rogue cultivators recruited by the Qingkou Hall. As for the last group, there were 11 people wearing red robes. Each of them had a white feather embroidered on their shoulders. They were from the 3rd-rate Luoyu Manor. Once the Luoyu Manor entered the city, Go Huarong invited them over. It was unknown what method he used to convince the Luoyu Manor to join forces with them. Ling Shiqi was the last person to arrive. Go Huarong saw him and said, "This is Brother Lu. I gathered everyone here today to tell you a great piece of news." "A great piece of news?" Let me guess. What are you guessing for? Even if you think with your knees, you know that Boyuan Ho's tomb has been found. The rogue cultivators immediately shouted excitedly, causing the disciples of the Luoyu Manor to feel disgusted. Go Huarong stretched out his hand and gestured for them to quiet down. He continued, "Yes, we have found the location of Boyuan Ho's tomb. However, everyone here must not spread this news. After we are ready, we will immediately set off for the tomb." At this time, an elegant person sitting next to Go Huarong spoke. "Hall Master Go, isn't it too ostentatious for us to leave the city with such fanfare?" The person who spoke was the leader of the Luoyu Manor, Luo Xiuan of the spiritual pulse realm. His cultivation was at the top of the group, and he was also Go Huarong's thigh. Go Huarong immediately smiled and said, "That is indeed the case." Originally, this Go planned to let everyone disguise themselves and leave the city. But this Go thought about it, wouldn't that damage the reputation of Luoyu Manor? Forget it. Even if others find out, it doesn't matter. After all, we've already taken the initiative. Luo Xiuan glanced at Go Huarong expressionlessly. At that moment, Go Huarong felt an invisible pressure pressing down on his heart like a mountain, making him a little breathless. Luo Xiuan said calmly, "It's best if Hall Master Go doesn't use such petty tricks in the future." Inferior. Although his tone was very calm, it gave people the feeling that a volcano was about to erupt. Yes, I was muddle-headed. Go Huarong immediately nodded his head like a hammer and shouted, "Everyone, split up and leave the city." Not long after, Ling Shiqi followed the few individual cultivators out of the city. They did not disguise themselves because no one paid much attention to them. Nowadays, there were countless individual cultivators coming and going in Shangyang City every day. It was impossible for everyone to be on guard. After they left the city, they rushed in the direction that Go Huarong said. They were not stingy with their spiritual power and traveled day and night. They finally arrived at their destination at noon the next day, Flat Top Hill. It was a low hill. The top of the hill was bare, with only a few weeds growing in the cracks of the rocks. It looked very desolate. One of the people in the crowd said in a strange tone, "There's a tomb here? Or Master Ho's tomb? What a joke. Even commoners won't bury themselves in this barren land. It's none of your business. Do you think you've become a master just because you've read 2 books on feng shui?" Another person immediately refuted. "What do you know? Enough, what are you arguing about? There's movement over there. Maybe it's the people from Chinko Hall. Let's go and take a look." Then Ling Shiqi and these people went around from the side and saw a large group of people busy with something. When they got close, Wen Shui greeted them politely. "Heroes, you must be tired from your journey. Please rest here for a while. The tomb is about to be opened. When the hall master and the others arrive, we can go in and explore." Ling Shiqi and the others nodded and went to the nearby tents to recover their spiritual power. Ling Shiqi found an empty corner and quietly opened his supercilious eyes to explore the interior of the tomb. However, something happened that shocked him. He could not see through the walls of the tomb. Ling Shiqi was shocked. His supercilious eyes had an extremely strong ability to see through things. At this time, he could only see through some sand and stones on the surface. Then, he was blocked by a thick wall. This tomb of Boiwanhu is really not simple. I'm afraid there's something like an isolation array inside. Ling Shiqi thought silently. In the end, he could only close his supercilious eyes and go back to recover his spiritual power. In the afternoon, people from Chinko Hall and Luo Yu Manor arrived one after another. As soon as Go Huarong arrived, Wen Shui immediately said something. Go Huarong's face showed some joy. Then, he walked over and said loudly, "Everyone, the door of the tomb is about to open. We have the advantage. After entering the tomb, as long as we get the tomb, I will fulfill my promise." However, just as he finished speaking, there were sounds of footsteps behind him. Judging by the sound, there were many people. What's going on? Go Huarong and the others' faces changed. Everyone hurried forward and saw a group of guards wearing silver light armor rushing over in an orderly manner. Behind them were dozens of loose cultivators and more than half of them were people. At the front of the light armor guards, there were 10 spirit cultivators from Heavenly Cloud Tower. These people were from the City Lord Mansion. The leader was the commander of the city guards, Zhong Lin, who was the temporary city lord. He was burly, wearing silver armor and holding a huge sword. He was looking at Go Huarong with a cold smile. Beside him was the deacon elder of Heavenly Cloud Tower, Yu Jinyu, who was staring straight at Luo Xiuan. In his eyes, among so many people, only Luo Xiuan was his opponent. Go Huarong's face was gloomy as he shouted, "Zhong Lin. How did you know about this place?" Zhong Lin's deep voice sounded, "Of course, someone told me." As soon as he said that, Go Huarong looked left and right. At this moment, 3 words appeared in his mind: "There's a traitor." He was furious. "Damn it, if I find out who leaked the news, I'll tear him into pieces." At this moment, there was a loud boom from the side. Wen Shui ran to Go Huarong and shouted, "Hall Master, it's open. The cave entrance is open." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Zhong Lin, the city guards, and the people from Heavenly Cloud Tower. He was stunned. Chapter 161. In front of Boiwanhu's mausoleum, Chinko Hall and the city guards were confronting each other. Go Huarong's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He knew that there must be a traitor on his side. Zhong Lin only came today, which meant that he had just learned the news. That excluded Chinko Hall and the people who came the day before yesterday. The several leaders around him had been with him all the time and had no chance to pass on the news. The people of Luoyu Manor were all arrogant and disdained to leak the news at all. Then, it could only be the rogue cultivators who left the city first. The traitor must be among them. Unfortunately, there was no time for him to find the traitor. Go Huarong could only glare fiercely at the rogue cultivators. At this time, Zhong Lin spoke. Hall Master Go, the news of Boiwanhu's mausoleum was spread by the city lord's mansion. Otherwise, even if you have the map in your hand, it would be a waste of paper. Since we're all here and the entrance is open, why don't we go in and explore together? Humph, that sounds nice. We spent so much effort to find the mausoleum and you want to reap the benefits with just a few words? Isn't that ridiculous? Go Huarong said unceremoniously. Zhong Lin shook his head and said, Hall Master Go, if we continue to delay, I'm afraid we won't even have the chance to go in together. Go Huarong frowned when he heard this. Immediately, he thought of something and his face changed slightly. Ling Shiqi rolled his eyes and also thought of the meaning of Zhong Lin's words. That was, rogue cultivators. There were now a large number of rogue cultivators gathered in Shangyang City, and only a few of them were recruited by Chinko Hall and the city lord's mansion. There were hundreds and thousands of rogue cultivators in the city. Ling Shiqi and the others disguised themselves and went out of the city in batches, so they naturally did not attract the attention of the rogue cultivators. However, the city guards went out of the city with great fanfare. No matter how stupid the rogue cultivators were, they would know that Boiwanhu's mausoleum must be here. It would not be long before a large number of rogue cultivators arrived. Those rogue cultivators might be scrupulous about the people of Tianyun Tower and Luoyu Manor, and even give some face to the city guards, but they would never give face to Chinko Hall. Apart from that, there was another huge hidden danger, which was another third-rate sect, the Haoyi sect. The Haoyi sect didn't come into contact with any forces after entering Upper Yang City. They just stayed in the inn and were probably on their way here. In the end, Go Huarong made a concession. However, he put forward the condition of letting the city guards enter first. At first glance, this approach seemed a little stupid. It was equivalent to giving away the initiative, but in fact, it was a good idea. That was because there were bound to be some traps in the mausoleum. There might even be formations and prohibitions. The first person to enter would be equivalent to stepping on a mine. Zhong Lin glanced at Yu Jinyu, who was beside him. Seeing his unapproachable look, he thought about it and agreed to Go Huarong's condition. Soon after, the people of Chinko Hall opened up a small path. When the city guards arrived at the pitch-black entrance of the mausoleum, several dozen city guards with shields surrounded the others and stepped into the mausoleum step by step. After that, Go Huarong and Luoyu Manor entered together. Ling Shiqi was at the back of the group. He followed everyone into the legendary mausoleum of Marquis Boiwanhu without any sense of presence. As soon as he entered the mausoleum, Ling Shiqi felt a gust of cold wind. It was obviously a gentle breeze, but it made his body feel cold from the inside out. He looked up, but the mausoleum was pitch black and he couldn't see anything. Huff! Huff! At this time, torches lit up one after another in front of them. Go Huarong was obviously well prepared. With the help of the light from the torches, Ling Shiqi saw that they were in a passageway that was neither wide nor narrow. The walls on both sides of the passageway were bare. However, Ling Shiqi noticed that there were a lot of traces of heavy objects on the ground. However, these traces were not so clear over the years. Then Ling Shiqi pulled down the hood on his head, covering most of his face. Then, his eyes turned blue and white as he activated Byakugan. Previously, he activated Byakugan outside the mausoleum, but it was blocked and he couldn't see the situation inside. Now that he was inside, Byakugan could see most of the layout of the mausoleum, but there were still some places that he couldn't see through. At this moment, in Ling Shiqi's vision, there were several traps not far in front of this passageway, but he didn't say anything. Sure enough, after a dozen breaths, there was a ding ding dang dang sound mixed with a few screams. It was the city guards walking in front who accidentally triggered the trap. Hearing this, Go Hwarong sneered with a hint of schadenfreude and asked everyone to stop. After there was no sound in front of them, everyone continued to move forward. It didn't take long for them to see the ground full of arrows and the bodies of several guards. Go Hwarong said coldly, "Serves you right." At this time, Ling Shiqi, who was walking at the back, suddenly moved his body and leaned against the wall on the right. Because he was walking at the back, and everyone's attention was attracted by the front, no one noticed his strange move. He did this because he had already used Byakugan to discover that there was actually a trap here. However, this trap was very sinister. It wasn't activated once it was triggered, but after it was triggered a second time. This way, they could guard against the second batch of people who entered and returned. There was a soft caw sound. Someone had triggered the trap. Suddenly, the wall above the passageway suddenly split into two sides, and then countless sharp spikes fell down. What was even more terrifying was that these spikes were shining with spiritual light. Everyone was startled. Go Hwarong immediately shouted, "Not good. Run." The spikes didn't cover the entire passageway, and there was still some space on both sides. Everyone immediately hid on both sides of the passageway. Unfortunately, most of these people thought that the trap had been triggered by the city guards, so they weren't too vigilant. Even though they were warned, they were still half a step too late, and finally died after being pierced by countless spikes. Go Hwarong and Luo Xiuan's faces turned pale when they saw this scene. They didn't expect such a trap, and they were caught off guard. What was worse was that this trap actually killed about 30% of the people. Among them were 2 disciples of Luo Yu Manor. All of this happened too suddenly. Even Luo Xiuan didn't have time to do anything. Otherwise, he would have had a chance to save the 2 disciples. Now, some people had died before the tomb was found, and they had lost even more people than the city guards. They were at a disadvantage all of a sudden. Ling Shiqi also pretended to be panicked. He was still inconspicuous in the crowd. Chapter 162. The people from Chinko Hall and Luo Yu Manor had triggered the second mechanism, which naturally attracted the attention of the city guards and Tianyun Tower. Zhong Lin had a puzzled look on his face, but a glint flashed across Eugenu's eyes. She said, "So there is a mechanism that can be triggered twice. This mechanism is extremely complicated to set up. It seems like this mausoleum is not as simple as we thought." Zhong Lin said, "Elder Yu is really knowledgeable. I admire you." Eugeniu did not speak and did not want to talk to him. Zhong Lin's expression stiffened, but he did not say anything. He just instructed his men to be more careful. On Ling Shiqi's side, Luo Xiuan, who rarely spoke along the way, said unhappily, "Hall Master Go, since we have entered the mausoleum, let's split up. Luo Yu Manor will stay behind and help Hall Master Go block the rogue cultivators who are coming." Go Hwarong knew that he was going to take the thunder for Luo Yu Manor. He wanted to refuse, but he could not because he could not afford to offend Luo Xiuan. He had to rely on him. This was the difference in strength. It was also the huge difference between a small gang and a spirit cultivator sect. Go Hwarong had no choice but to nod his head with a grim expression. Next, Chinko Hall and the loose cultivators they recruited walked in front while the remaining 9 cultivators from Fallen Feathers Manor walked behind them. This time, every one of them took 1 step at a time, moving with extreme caution. Ling Shiqi had a headache. Originally, he was at the back and could use the supercilious eyes to observe more. Now that he was in the middle, especially with Luo Xiuan behind him, he did not dare to make any small moves. He was afraid that this Spirit Pulse Realm Master would notice something. Then, they triggered 1 or 2 second mechanisms in the passage. But because everyone was very careful this time, only a few rogue cultivators died. At the end of the passage was a huge tomb chamber. It was so big that people mistook it for a square. When Leng Shiqi and the rest arrived, they saw the city guards standing neatly at the side. Beside them were people from Tianyun Tower and some rogue cultivators. Zhong Lin heard the noise and turned to look. When he saw that many people from Chinko Hall had died, he felt a sense of relief. But his face was still very serious. Not only him, but Go Huarong, Luo Xiuan, and Leng Shiqi also had grave expressions. This was because there were over 1,000 humanoid things standing in this huge tomb. These things looked no different from ordinary people, but they were all lifeless like statues. Their eyes were also staring straight ahead, which was a bit creepy. What was even stranger was that these people were all wearing armor and holding spears in their hands. They were like a group of Yin soldiers. Luo Xiuan said softly, "Could this be a corpse puppet?" "Does Mr. Luo know what these things are?" Go Huarong asked tentatively. Luo Xiuan did not hide anything and said, "I've seen it in a secret scroll in the village. This corpse puppet is a variant of the puppet technique. It was created by the corpse refining sect a few hundred years ago. This kind of corpse puppet used living people as materials to refine them into puppets. Moreover, they couldn't die during the refining process. Otherwise, everything would be in vain. After the refining was successful, the corpse puppet could still exert more than half of its strength before it was born. Coupled with the corpse refining sect's spiritual techniques, it could be said to be fearless and powerful. But later, because this method was too vicious, the corpse refining sect was destroyed by several spirit cultivator sects together. I just didn't expect Boiwanhu, who had outstanding military achievements, to use such vicious methods to refine corpse puppets." After hearing Luo Xiuan's words, many people gasped in shock. It seemed that these corpse puppets were refined into puppets when they were still alive. That kind of inhuman pain was terrifying just thinking about it. Everyone could not help but snort at Boiwanhu in their hearts. However, Leng Shiqi felt that something was wrong. Because he cultivated the 7 evil blood art, although he could not exert the characteristics of this technique, he was more sensitive to evil spirits. Logically speaking, this kind of corpse puppet should have strong resentment and evil spirits, but Leng Shiqi did not feel the slightest bit of evil spirits from them. He even vaguely felt an indescribable feeling. Leng Shiqi continued to look back and found that there was a door at the back of the corpse puppets that led to another place. That place was also a place that Byakugan could not penetrate. He guessed that that might be the place where Boiwanhu was buried. However, if he wanted to go there, he had to go through these corpse puppets first. There were more than 1,000 corpse puppets, and each of them had excellent weapons and armor. Although he had not fought with them yet, he could tell that they were not easy to deal with. Whether it was the city guards, Chinko Hall, Tianyun Tower, or Luo Yu Manor, they did not have many spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm under them. Most of them were in the pure spirit realm. However, both sides added up to about 300 to 400 people. With such a lineup, even if they could win against the corpse puppets, they would suffer heavy losses. Therefore, neither side wanted to be the vanguard. At this time, there was a burst of noise from the passage behind them. Not long after, a large group of rogue cultivators rushed over. There were about 200 to 300 people. When these rogue cultivators saw the corpse puppets, they knew that they were not to be trifled with. However, there were all kinds of people among the rogue cultivators, and there were a few who were bold enough to poke the corpse puppets. This touch did not matter, but all the corpse puppets trembled slightly at this moment. Thousands of corpse puppets stiffly turned a few times, and then rushed over together. The first few people who touched the corpse puppets were pierced by the corpse puppet spears in the blink of an eye, and they could not be more dead. The sudden awakening of the corpse puppets caught everyone off guard. Among them, 3 corpse puppets attacked Leng Shiqi at the same time. However, Leng Shiqi did not panic. He did not dodge, but unsheathed his spirit saber and took the initiative to meet them. He wanted to see how strong these corpse puppets were. With a clang, Leng Shiqi's scimitar blocked the spears of the 3 corpse puppets. Immediately after, 3 huge forces were transmitted, shaking his hand until it went numb. Each corpse puppet actually has the strength of a peak pure spirit realm cultivator. Ling Shiqi secretly exclaimed. Then, something even stranger happened. The 3 corpse puppets actually split up. One of them stalled Ling Shiqi from the front, and the other 2 surrounded him from the side. They actually had a certain level of consciousness. A hint of surprise appeared in Ling Shiqi's eyes, but he could not delay any longer because several corpse puppets were rushing towards him from behind. Then, Ling Shiqi used spirit steps and easily dodged the attacks of the 3 corpse puppets. Then, with a shake of the scimitar in his hand, hundreds of saber shadows directly enveloped the 3 corpse puppets. The saber light was like a storm, and in a few breaths, the 3 corpse puppets were cut into pieces. Chapter 163. Ling Shiqi pulled himself out and looked around. The people from the various forces had gathered and were fighting for themselves. There were not many spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm in the city guards and Chinko Hall, but they had the advantage of numbers. At this moment, they formed a circle and hugged each other. The people outside were injured or did not have enough spirit energy, so the people inside immediately went up and stabilized their position. Although the people in Heavenly Cloud Tower and Luo Yu Manor were few, they were all elite disciples in the spirit transformation realm. There were even spirit pulse realm experts. At this moment, Heavenly Cloud Tower's Deacon Elder Yu Jinyu suddenly slapped out. A majestic palm force surged out and instantly destroyed more than a dozen corpse puppets. Luo Xiuan of Luo Yu Manor actually used a brush as his weapon. He swung the brush freely among the corpse puppets. Every time he wrote, he would kill a corpse puppet. These corpse puppets were no threat to the 2 of them at all. Only the rogue cultivators were killed by the corpse puppets. They were not strong enough and could not trust each other to work together. Almost half of them were killed by the corpse puppets. The rogue cultivators standing near the passage were scared out of their wits and hurriedly ran back to the passage to leave. However, before they could run a few steps, they ran into 5 people dressed in black. These 5 people had pale skin and were expressionless. A rogue cultivator who ran out accidentally bumped into one of the black-clothed men because he didn't look back. The black-clothed man glanced at him and immediately opened his hand, crushing the rogue cultivator's throat with lightning speed. The remaining dozen or so people stopped abruptly and looked at each other in dismay. However, they immediately ignored the dead man and wanted to continue moving forward. Unexpectedly, the faces of the other 4 black-clothed men revealed a wisp of desire, and then they suddenly attacked those rogue cultivators. This attack shocked the rogue cultivators. Only then did they realize that the 5 black-robed men were all in the late stage of the spirit transformation realm. How could these rogue cultivators be their opponents? In the blink of an eye, they were killed in an extremely tragic manner. The 5 black-clothed men walked into the huge tomb with blood on their lapels. Ling Shiqi, who was closest to the passageway, noticed them immediately. Then, he sensed a strong murderous aura and the smell of blood from the 5 men. These people must be the devil cultivators from Shangyang City. They're as cruel as the rumors say. No wonder they're so popular. Now, only the people from the Howie sect had yet to appear. What were they waiting for? Aren't you afraid that the Heavenly Cloud Tower and Luo Yu Manor will snatch everything away? Ling Shiqi was dealing with the zombies around him with ease, so he had the time to observe and think about other things. He didn't kill the corpse puppet as quickly as he did in the beginning. Instead, he led the corpse puppet to move left and right to buy time. In other words, he was slacking. The 5 fiendish cultivators seemed to feel that they had not killed enough. After entering, they took the initiative to kill the corpse puppets. Furthermore, their attacks were straightforward and ruthless, and they cooperated very well with each other. In terms of killing the corpse puppets, they were not slower than Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuan. As the number of corpse puppets decreased, the pressure on everyone lessened. Gradually, the spirit cultivators took control of the battle. At this time, Ling Shiqi was no longer slacking. After killing 20 to 30 corpse puppets in a row, all the corpse puppets had been wiped out. At this time, there were only about 100 people left on the Chinko Hall's side. The city guards were slightly better. The Heavenly Cloud Tower, Luoyu Manor, and the 5 fiendish cultivators did not suffer much damage. They only consumed more spiritual power. The most miserable were the rogue cultivators. Not long ago, there were hundreds of rogue cultivators, but now there were only a few dozen left. This was the sorrow of rogue cultivators. They did not have good cultivation talent and did not have good cultivation methods or spiritual skills. However, they also wanted to go further, so they stepped into this tomb to fight for an opportunity. Unfortunately, more than half of them had died before they even saw the tomb. Ling Shiqi could not help but feel a trace of sorrow for them. Rogue cultivators could be said to be the lowest existence among spirit cultivators. Today was the golden age of spirit cultivators. However, any slightly better cultivation methods, spiritual skills, and even cultivation resources were firmly in the hands of various spirit cultivator sects and empires. However, regardless of whether it was spirit cultivator sects or empires, they would only recruit people with decent cultivation talent. If they really could not do it, they would still have connections. However, the vast majority of people in this world had neither talent nor connections. They could only be reduced to rogue cultivators. All day long, they fought for a little bit of resources until they bled and even lost their lives. Of course, this thought only flashed through Ling Shiqi's mind. He immediately approached the crowd of Chinko Hall and looked at the door behind the corpse puppets. Everyone gathered in front of the door. The door was 20 feet tall and smooth. The strange thing was that there was not even a door knocker. How do I open this door? At this time, Eugeniu walked forward and stretched out a finger. Immediately, a white finger force shot out from his body and shot towards the door. With a ding sound, Eugeniu's finger hit the front of the door. A translucent light curtain flashed, and blocked this finger. There's a restriction. Eugeniu shouted. Luo Xiaowen walked over. His eyes shone with spiritual light as he said, it should be a pure defensive restriction. It's not very strong. Let's try to break it together. Eugeniu nodded and said, okay. Then, Luo Xiaowen's brush tapped lightly. The seemingly ordinary brush in his hand was like a sharp sword, giving people a feeling of extreme sharpness. At this moment, he gathered all his spiritual power at the tip of the brush. Then, he stabbed out and broke the surface with a single point. Eugeniu slapped out a few times. Every slap was majestic. Every slap hit the same place on the door. That was also the place where Luo Xiaowen stabbed out. Under the combined efforts of the 2 Spirit Pulse Realm experts, the restriction on the door was quickly broken. Luo Xiaowen and Eugeniu pushed open the door. When everyone saw what was inside, they were all shocked. Ling Shiqi was the same. Just as they opened the stone door, on top of the flat roof, 9 spirit cultivators in white sat in a circle. In the circle was a strange array. In addition, there was an old man with a long beard who was frowning and muttering to himself, strange, strange, this place is not a place with good feng shui. This is clearly a place of evil. In this way, Bo Yuanho's corpse will probably be eroded by the evil aura. Now that more than 300 years have passed, it is very likely that it will condense into a fiend corpse. He was a spirit aperture realm expert when he was alive. If he condensed into a fiend corpse, it would be a disaster. No, the evil aura here is a bit strange. There doesn't seem to be much negative aura in it. Strange, strange, why did Bo Yuanho bury himself here? What is he doing? Chapter 164. After the door was opened, before anyone could see what was inside, boundless yin qi gushed out at a speed visible to the naked eye. If Ling Shiqi felt a little chilly when he entered the mausoleum, then the yin qi was rushing toward him now. Everyone felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Some of them were unable to withstand the cold and began to shiver on the spot. There were even some whose bodies were invaded by the baleful aura, triggering the negative emotions in their hearts and causing them to go crazy on the spot. Of course, they were quickly killed by the others. Ling Shiqi also felt a desire to kill in his mind. Fortunately, his mental strength was not weak. He mobilized his mental strength in time to suppress the impulse. What surprised him was that the 5 cruel demonic cultivators did not show any abnormalities. When the yin qi gradually dissipated, Ling Shiqi followed the crowd into the tomb. The area here was not small, just a little smaller than the tomb outside. There were circles of pitch-black iron pillars around the tomb, and each of the iron pillars was connected by chains. A heavy coffin was suspended in the middle of the layers of chains. The coffin was pale gold in color, and it was engraved with strange patterns. This should be the main tomb of Boiwanhu. Ling Shiqi opened his Byakugan again, but he still could not see the inside of the coffin. Seeing this coffin, Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuwen's eyes could not help but burn. Go Huarong and Zhong Lin's eyes lit up. The others were even more unbearable. The word greed was written all over their faces, and some even drooled. Ling Shiqi, on the other hand, had been observing the iron pillars and chains. This scene gave him a sense of déjà vu. He thought for a moment and finally remembered that when the fusion blood beast appeared on the 5th floor of the blood-colored tower, the formation that trapped it was similar to the one here. It was just that the formation in this tomb was much larger than that time. He secretly guessed, could it be that this place is suppressing or sealing something? The yin qi just now was also very strange. Could it be suppressing Boiwanhu? While Ling Shiqi was thinking, the others couldn't help but talk about it. This must be Marquis Boyuan's coffin. Without a doubt. Such a big coffin. How much gold and silver are there in it? Gold, silver, and treasures are nothing. There must be natural treasures inside. Maybe there are even cultivation methods and spiritual techniques. So what if there is? It has nothing to do with us. In the end, it still belongs to those few people. The people he was referring to were naturally Yu Jinyu, Luo Xiuwen, Go Huarong, and Zhong Lin. At this moment, the 4 of them were discussing something in low voices for the first time. Yu Jinyu said straightforwardly, "Who will open the coffin?" Luo Xiuwen and Go Huarong fell silent. This tomb was full of traps. There must be some traps on the last coffin. Whoever opened the coffin would be in danger. The corner of Yu Jinyu's mouth twitched as she continued, "Why don't we let those people come?" As he spoke, he pointed at the remaining dozens of rogue cultivators. The other 3 immediately understood what she meant and nodded. Then, the people from the 4 forces surrounded the rogue cultivators. Those people felt something was wrong, but it was too late to run now. "What are you doing?" Yu Jinyu's gaze fell on the person who spoke. It was a middle-aged man who looked a little sloppy. He felt a chill down his spine when he was stared at by Yu Jinyu. Yu Jinyu pointed at him and said, "You, go open the coffin." The sloppy middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. He immediately shook his head like a rattledrum. "What? No, I won't go." Yu Jinyu's gaze turned cold as she sneered. "Humph, this is not up to you. If you want to live, go open the coffin. Don't make me say it a 3rd time." The sloppy middle-aged man saw the murderous intent in Yu Jinyu's eyes. If he didn't agree, he would be lying here forever. It was dangerous to open the coffin. If he didn't open the coffin, he would die. This was an easy choice to make. He could only compromise. He mustered up his courage and walked through the chains to get close to the coffin. Everyone's gaze fell on him. Ling Shiqi also stared at this person to see if there was any danger in the process of walking into the coffin. However, to everyone's surprise, the sloppy middle-aged man actually reached the bottom of the coffin. Ling Shiqi thought to himself, aren't these chains some kind of array formation? Maybe I'm thinking too much. The sloppy middle-aged man jumped on top of the coffin. Although the coffin was suspended in the air, it didn't move at all. The sloppy middle-aged man moved to the side and stood on the iron pillar at the corner of the coffin. He rubbed his hands and grabbed the coffin lid with both hands. Ah! The sloppy middle-aged man tried to lift the coffin lid with all his strength, but the lid didn't move at all. Then, his spirit force surged and there was a faint light on his arms. His face turned red, but he still couldn't open the coffin. Eugeniu pointed at 3 people in a row and said, you, and you, go over too. The 3 people he pointed at were all rogue cultivators at the spirit transformation realm, so the 3 of them could only go over with a calm face. They and the sloppy middle-aged man stood at the 4 corners. Then, they used all of their spirit force to grab the coffin lid. With a GA sound, the coffin lid moved. The 4 of them were overjoyed. They immediately increased their strength and suddenly lifted the coffin lid. Leng Shiqi's expectation of a scene filled with baleful aura did not happen. He immediately activated his supercilious eyes and looked over. Soon after, his greenish-white eyes were filled with astonishment as he quietly retreated. The 4 people who opened the coffin subconsciously looked down and saw that the coffin was filled with a dense light black fog. There didn't seem to be any treasures in the fog. They only saw a burly figure wearing heavy armor, holding a heavy sword, and a helmet. The helmet only revealed 2 holes. However, in the next moment, the 2 holes lit up. Whoosh! Before the others had time to rush to the coffin, for black fog suddenly rushed out of the coffin. It turned into a huge ghost claw and instantly grabbed the 4 people who opened the coffin and dragged them into the coffin. Immediately, there was a burst of shrill screams. The coffin trembled slightly and then there was no more sound. Eugeniu and Luo Xiuan looked at each other. This situation was indeed beyond their expectations. The aura from the 4 fog was stronger than theirs. At this moment, an old man in white rushed in from the door behind them. He shouted in a panic, "Don't open the coffin, don't open the coffin." As soon as he finished speaking, the black fog in the coffin instantly rushed to the sky. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.